was it?
You taking any vacation?
Oh yeah. Swap seats with Clark. Yeah. Going July 30th.
Ooh. For a short time? That's
Couple
somebody.
weeks.
Couple of weeks.
July 3rd. Yeah, so the first couple weeks of August.
Where are you guys heading?
Eastern Canada.
Oh, I love that. I drove from Victoria all the way to Ontario.
Oh my gosh. That's a
80, was it? A couple of times, but the major drive was in 86 when they had the Olympic there, Winter Olympic.
Oh, okay.
In the High Clark. Beautiful.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be nice. You know, the original Karen's parents live in upstate New York.
Long time no see.
Yes. I wish you would make time to go to Alaska.
Well, you know, we're able to get some. We're able to use our miles to go to Montreal. I couldn't get a.
You're not driving
anywhere in New York using miles, but I could go to Montreal in the same, 20,000 miles, 25, whatever.
Parlez-vous français?
And then you start to research and you realize there's a lot of really cool stuff out there. So yeah, I'm just gonna rent a car and bring our camping stuff and.
Hey, how you doing, Caroline? Ready for another scintillating meeting?
Yeah. I don't like reservations, but I had to.
Hello, Ray.
Montreal, and then that's it.
Are you ready for your vacation?
More than ready.
You lucky guy.
You want me a teacup? Okay, yeah, I'll bring it.
You lived in France, didn't you, Sophie?
I went to school in Sudan for a while.
Oh, you did? Huh.
Well, that was my parents didn't want me to come this far up, so they took me to Europe for a while. So I was doing university hopping, Oxford and Sorbonne. And
Something from mine.
You learned French when you were in...
right now they're pushing kids to learn Chinese and Arabic. Ray,
Yeah.
is this from you?
All right, we all ready?
Ready?
All right, good evening. If you can join us with the flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call, please.
Note for the record that all council members are present.
Okay, so we are continuing our budget meeting from Monday night, and we left off with the master fee schedule review. Stuart?
I'm going to go a little bit out of order
Okay.
from that. What I wanted to talk about, again, as I do every time I stand up here, is just where we are in this process. So the first one I'd like to talk about is the breakout of where we are in the deficit. This was an area of conversation for the City Council at the last meeting. So for the projected revenues, I've got $11,614,000, and that includes $1,050,000 of recology funds. I've got the departments that were previously highlighted as must as $11,008,000. So if we get all of recology funding, we would have enough money to do all of what we had considered must programs previously. The next set of departments were those that were not previously categorized. Those services that were not previously categorized, those are $1,117,000. Obviously, even if we do get all of recology to provide for all the departments that we did not previously discuss and all the services, there would be a deficit for the upcoming fiscal year 2012-2013. Line items that had been kept in the budget based on the previous meetings were $222,000, and there are still $233,000 of items under consideration. So at the moment, the net deficit is $967,000.
Can I clarification? So the items under consideration, if those are not approved by the council, the deficit is going to be 1 point.
No. So if the items still under consideration are not approved by council, the deficit would become
Got it. Because
$734,000 because they are part of that deficit right now.
Thank you.
So you have, as you know, you have whittled what you have removed $111,000 from those items. So that's how we went from the $1 million plus deficit previously to the $967,000 deficit. And just a reminder to something that we had talked about at the first budget meeting back in May. This year's budget, the 2011-2012 budget, was adopted basically in balance. And for this fiscal year, based on the information we had as of February, I would anticipate revenues were about $400,000 better than we had budgeted, and that expenditures were about $400,000 less than we had budgeted. So for the current fiscal year 11-12, we are, not only are we in balance, we're running a surplus based on the programs and services that we're running. The only thing that's really causing this issue is the VWR losing $2.1 million. As you can tell, if we were to add another million, and actually VWR might be a little bit over 2.1, but if we were to add a little over $2 million to this budget, or an extra million, we would be basically in balance, even given all the programs that we're currently doing. So the issues that the City Council has faced in the past when we've gone through reductions of staff, when we've gone through previous budget reduction exercises over the last 3 to 4 years, have set us up well for where we are today. That if it wasn't for this unusual circumstance for us, that, you know, the City Council has taken the actions to create an ongoing balanced budget. So it's just a question of at what point do you, as a council, how much of the reserves do you want to use this year in anticipation of recology, waiting to see if recology happens, and if not, have a plan for what we would do without recology, or do you want to continue to look at reductions for the current year, and then if recology happens, add money back in. The challenge with that at times would be is depending on what programs are reduced, if it means that there is going to be a reduction in staff, how quickly could you add staff back? How quickly could you let staff go? All would be challenges of how do you get to this bottom line number. But as I said, you know, looking at the numbers we have done, Council's done exactly what they've talked about, creating a long-term financial security for the city. The reductions that we've done to date would have done that, except for this other out of the ordinary occurrence for us. I did hear one bit of good news about that today, is that they are still using the Radisson over the next 6 months for some of their trainings. So there may still be a presence in town for VWR, which is kind of interesting because what I was told is that they're actually training their sales force. And that was actually what I received the information that they were reducing first. So I'm not quite sure what VWR is really going on. We've also made contact through the Chamber of Commerce with the Radisson about, the change in
Management.
their product. And what they have said is that they are not going to close down any parts of their building while they're doing the remodels. And if that does happen, it would be at least a year away. They're looking at doing a $5 million upgrade, and they would look at staying at least at the level of a Radisson, if not looking at maybe a higher end product, because they're going after the European and Chinese market, and they're not looking at going after the average traveler in this country. So I don't think we're going to see the kinds of reductions based on what we're hearing from the Radisson staff.
Or whoever their name is now.
Well, actually they have a general manager now. Unfortunately, what Mitch told me is that general manager is probably not going to be there in another week or two. The person has family issues and they're going to need to replace that person with somebody else. So we don't have a permanent contact there yet as a general manager, but that's what we've been told to date.
And this is something we started, I think, 2007, 2008?
We started seeing this start in 2007. We started holding positions vacant. We started rearranging staff to cover positions when they were held vacant. We have, when we've had positions open in Public Works, we've looked at reducing the areas in the general fund over the ones in the water and sewer, which are fully paid for. We've looked at, when we had positions that we lost in planning, we've made do with the staff that we've had. When we've lost positions in administration, we've split those duties out. As you know, when we lost the Parks and Recreation Director, we split his remaining duties between the Marine Aquatics Director and myself. We're anticipating the Marine Aquatics Director to leave this year, and we would anticipate, splitting his duties between staff who's already at the marina, the Public Works Director, and myself. So, we have, through the process of the last 5 years, worked to try and figure out how do we continue to provide the services that Council has directed over the past years have been important for this community in a way that we are not impacting directly services. One of the things that other cities have done and the state has done is they've taken furloughs in order to reduce their costs. What this did have, and if, having a child in the school, this has a direct impact. It means my child is in school less. It means when we called PERS, when they were doing furloughs, we could not get a hold of a person on certain days. City Council decided in the past that they were not going to look at adding staff back and doing furloughs to do the reductions, that they would look at trying to provide these services the city provides with the minimum number of staff required. And I think, as you heard through a lot of the presentations, when we talk about fire, when they're down to a 3-person crew and have to backfill on overtime, that, we used to have a 4-person crew before this, the recession hit. We now went to a 3-person crew, which thinned out the soup to the point where we have the minimum staff. We talked, and you heard the same thing in the police department, where we have only 1 person left on overlap. Before that time, we were having 3-person per shift, plus we had a schools resource officer, plus we had a detective. So we have been working very hard to try and provide the basic services that the council has talked about. The council talked about these in the must services, and we're trying to do them with the minimum amount of staffing possible. And you're right, this has been going on, since 07, 08.
And as I recall, when we first heard of VWR leaving, and that was like in the fall of 2010, dates that were being thrown around was 2014. I seem to recall that. And then we just recently, I think, found out within this past years or 9 months, I think, when we found out actually when they're leaving.
Right. I mean, from what we knew originally was that their lease was good through 2014. We had heard that they were trying to build in Visalia. Couldn't remember the name. Probably trying to block that name out. They were trying to build in Visalia. That we hadn't gotten confirmation from their company as to what they were looking at. We had been hearing rumors from different people who worked at VWR that December of 2012 may have been the date. The newest number was June, but now we're hearing that they're still going to have some kind of presence here for the next 6 months. Otherwise, they wouldn't be booking, if they were all in Visalia, they wouldn't be booking trainings at the Radisson for the next 6 months. So, without VWR talking to us directly, which they're not willing to do, I know the mayor has tried to make, this current mayor has tried to make contact. I think when you were mayor, you tried to make contact. It's a difficult company to deal with. So we're still shooting in the dark. But what I could say is, based on their current revenue stream, every month that they stay here past June 30th would produce about $150,000 to $180,000 in revenue that we do not have anticipated in this budget.
Okay.
May I follow up?
Sure.
Interesting when you're saying their past history of what they say and what they do has been very different. So now that they're saying that there could be possibly 6 months of sales training at the Radisson, it really has a red flag for me that based on what they have said, it might not really materialize because what they say is not necessarily what they do.
Well, I mean, if they're booking rooms, they're paying for the rooms there for their sales training. I would find it hard to believe that they would be paying the Radisson to book a room when they were going to have their entire sales force in another place.
So they have actually paid for 6 months?
That's my understanding, is that they have booked and they've reserved the rooms for the next 6 months.
That's good.
And Stuart, does that mean that if they have a presence here, then we still receive the sales tax for?
If their sales force are still considered to be located in Brisbane, we would still receive their sales tax. I'm not sure, again, we can't talk to them, they're not willing to talk to us directly. So I'm not sure what their booking rooms for their salespeople means versus, having people located in Brisbane versus having their warehouse located in Visalia. I mean, it's just one of these things. And because of that, we've taken the conservative approach of not having any revenues from VWR in this budget. So anything we would get from them would help us close a deficit or increase our revenues. And, normally what we try and do is do reprojections in December. We will not really know what's going on with VWR sales, actual sales tax receipts.
February.
Well, I think the first real indication we will get will be December, because that will be I think we receive the first quarter's, it's either late November or early December that we will receive the July through September number. And that's going to be really the telltale number as to whether or not who may be left of VWR and how the Board of Equalization views who's left here. Because if they keep a portion of their warehouse here and move their sales force out of state, which is the other thing that we've heard rumors of over the years, last couple of years, is that their sales force will not actually be in state. And that may be the reason they're going to do it at the Radisson, because they may be thinking it's close to SFO and close to their warehouse. But if their warehouse is here, then we would get allocated any sales that the people in the warehouse touch if their sales force is out of state, because it's the first touch within the state of California that matters. So we are still unsure of what's going on. And, to be conservative, I would not at all recommend putting any revenues back into the budget for VWR. I think that would be one of those things that if we get revenues from VWR, we should either look at it to reduce whatever deficit is out there or to put aside for one-time expenditures, because we know that will be a one-time revenue source. So you might want to think about using that for some of the capital improvement items that I think we would be bringing back to talking about the capital improvement list over the next 3 to 4 or 5 months. So I think there's a lot of still fluidity in this, but I just wanted to talk. I just wanted to say that the plan that the council put in place 4 years ago has worked for what the city council was anticipating 4 years ago. I don't want that point loss, is that, the city council recognized that there was an economic downturn, that we were going to have reduced revenues, that, everything being equal, we met the goal that city council put out there for staff. And that the city council had the foresight to not wait and say, okay, the economy is going to get better, that when they recognized that there was a downturn in the economy in 07 and 08, that we started putting those changes into place to allow us to be here today with over $6 million in reserves.
I have one just point of reference that I'd like to ask, and you may not have the answer. If we have, excuse me, a budget of $12 million today, in 2008, what was our budget?
I think it was closer to 14 million.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing up this information, Stuart. It's good to have that reminder, not only for the council but for the people that are watching, that that the council has made has been proactive in a lot of areas. Having something like VWR, that of course it's part of the economy. But it isn't because it's the downturn of the economy. It's because it's economically better for them to leave, and those things happen. And you add $2 million to the projected revenues, and you take out $1 million that we're hoping we're going to get from ecology, and we're up quite a bit. So,
may I ask a question?
But so. Again, one of the things we're going to be talking about are the priorities, and you never know when something like this can happen again. So, even though we're doing the right things, let's we still need to stay focused, and we still need to stay on top of it. All right.
Stuart, what was the year that we had that sales tax audit? And we had some revenue came to us?
I think that happened in 2009.
2009.
Right, and that was not put as part of the general fund, that was put as part of the rainy day fund, which is included in the fund balance, but...
Right. Some of the excesses that we've had to do with some really lucky chances, not because we've managed the budget and lived within our means. We've had... sometimes we might think that we're going to have some of those lucky chances, but the state can totally destroy all of that with the way they take backs and so forth. So when we're talking about truly living within our means, just if I can remember how many years in a row we've had to go into our reserve to cover our expenses.
I think we went into reserves in 08, 09 and 10, and this year we're not going to. So it was probably 08, 09, 09, 10, 10, 11.
Right.
And then 11, 12 we have, not only do we have a balanced budget, but I anticipate we will have a surplus.
Right.
And then next year, we would, at the moment, dip into reserves an anticipated $960,000. There's still $233,000 for council consideration. So, but at the same time, I want to really compliment the staff for looking ahead and the staffing and some of the measures that they have taken to stay, at least to hold on the staff cost, has really helped us by taking care of things, doubling on duties, attrition, and so forth. But traditionally, we've been dipping to our reserve rather than really looking at our structural budgeting and how, for example, the school bus situation. I'm not against that. Transportation is good. But we came and we did it one time to give us time to study it, to come out with ways how we can help with the community, how we can. Then it becomes
We don't look at it. We wait until crisis starts, and then the chaos happens that, oh, they're going to cut transportation. So those are the stuff that I'm concerned. We don't really look at solving problems. We just postpone it and postpone it. And when chaos happens, how are you going to meet? Right now, if we adopt the budget with the stuff that we have in the budget, ecology doesn't happen, how are you going to take back the school bus? Parents are not going to be able, right in the middle of their planning. How are we going to take back? Those are my concerns. We need to really plan, have plan of action, and get out of this deficit dipping to reserve.
Clark, you wanted to respond?
If I was hearing that from Ray and Terry, I would understand, but hearing it from you, Seppi, I'm surprised, especially after what Stuart just said, that we have taken action through the years, and using the deficit or using our reserves was not a major hole like what we have this year. You know, I mean, that's kind of what it was there for. We had an expectation of some downturns. So, I mean, you're saying a structural deficit, we have planned for that and planned a reorganization. So, I mean, you as one of the 5 council members at the time making those decisions, you should be giving yourself a pat on the back. And, but it seems like you're not willing to look at that part. You know, I agree with you that, you know, we have to be prudent in what we do in our decision-making process. You know, in reference like to the bus itself, you know, for Jefferson High School District, we actually put that in resolution back in 1999, I think it was, and along with the Open Space Acquisition Fund. And the purpose of that money that was going to the Jefferson Union High School District was specifically for a late bus, keeping the library open, extended hours at Terra Nova, and computer labs and advanced placement classes. And the computer labs were computers at all the high schools in the Jefferson Union High School District of Jefferson, Westmore, Oceana, and Terra Nova, Brisbane Library, and the Teen Center. And then the AP classes were spread out with the bulk of them being at Terra Nova. But as Times put it, as the state rated the schools, or gave the schools less money, that started dwindling to the point that just the last 2 years, he said, we can't afford to provide a bus service. Jefferson High School. You know, even though the kids, they have to provide the education from a public school, but they can't get them there. And that was kind of one of the things that came and asked if we could use that money for that. And that money was never intended just to be a bus provider. But being in the situation that we were in, we were trying to look for ways that we could help out, so to speak, and not institutionalize it. And it's not institutionalized, but at the same token, by the same token, you know, we still have to look at what we can do to provide our constituents,
That's exactly.
our non-voting constituents, how to get them to and fro school. And, you know, that, you know, is an issue. It's a community issue, you know, albeit the city doesn't have to provide that, you know, but it's something that we kind of, as a council, have to weigh out. What, you know, what we want to do, what we want to provide, and how we want to provide it. I mean, certainly, if things were really bad, we know where we're going to cut the meat. And, you know, I think that, yeah, we look at all these things, but, you know, are we ready to cut it yet? And that's a philosophical question for that piece of the pie, I guess you'd call it, the puzzle.
I mean, as a staff person, not that as your finance person, I truly believe that we need to get to a structural balanced budget, and we need to set aside money for capital improvements. We adopted a business license ordinance back in 2007, 2008. I can't remember the year, where any business that has gross receipts above 10 million, we put a portion of their business license into capital projects, and we get about $40,000 to $50,000 from that a year. I'm sure when you hear the capital improvements that are needed in the city, 40 to 50,000 is not going to be the number. But one of the things that Councilmember Miller asked me back in May was, why did I budget for $400,000 coming from the liability reserve in fiscal year 13-14 versus 12-13? And the reason is to try and work towards a balanced budget and use reserves at a slower pace. Maybe because as your finance person, I hear the struggles that is going on for each of the five of you. Maybe one of the ways that we can continue this conversation, because as we do so over the next 3 to 4 months, is to take that $400,000 fund balance, available funds and liability, and that we were going to use in 13-14, and use it in fiscal year 12-13, and that way you have a little bit more assurance that this year you're not going to be running into the deficit. You'll have a little bit more assurance of if recology is going to happen, and have some more time to deal with that outcome. Not that I would, as your finance person, I want to ensure that we get to a structural balanced budget, because we can't be here year after year with me saying we're running $1 million in the hole, we're running $1 million in the hole. But I also, there's Clay is going to get to, in the next portion, a number of items that we're going to be looking at over the next 3 to 4 months. Probably, if we start talking about parks and recreation fees, as we talked about last time, that may take us the full fiscal year to work through the Parks and Recreation Commission, and how to restructure the Parks and Recreation may take a whole year to do. Mm-hmm. So, maybe as opposed to moving the liability fund, using liability fund money in 13-14, it may make more sense to use it in 12-13 to give you that level of assurance that 12-13, even if recology doesn't happen, you will only go into the hole $1.5 million, which is a tremendous amount, but which will still keep you, I believe, above the $5 million threshold, and give you that year to develop that bare bones, probably even marrow, probably even below bare bones, probably a marrow-related budget. So, that may be another alternative, and I recognize the difficulty of doing that, because that may seem as if it's pushing a decision further down the road that should be made sooner. It's just, as your finance person, I understand the difficulty of this decision, the intricacy of all the moving parts, and the challenge of balancing all the needs of the community. So, that may be a different alternative, But as I said, when I put the budget together, the anticipation of recology being in place, it made sense that any money that we would use, that $400,000, to help offset the 13-14 year. But that's a council decision to make. Right.
The concern, I know previous council, I know all of us have done a great job to keep the year going, but I know I've known Dolores, God, ever since I came here. Just the fear of having a conversation with her that I was instrumental in contributing to the history of Brisbane, of being known, got bankrupt. How would I be able to look at you? How would I be able to look at Mr. Laxamano and say, and this is what happened, and sorry, we couldn't do anything about it. That's the fear I have, that the tough decision, I don't mind making tough decision, I don't mind making unpopular decision, but keep Brisbane, the legacy that you guys have created, to keep that going. Your father, what you have done, and I keep saying that your passion that you have, I admire, but at the same time, I truly owe it to the Brisbane community, to the generations in the future to come, to make sure our city stays solvent. and we would have another star in our book that we're not deficit financing, we're providing service to people. If the money is there, none of us would have problem. But it's not there. We are working on what ifs, what ifs. That's the fear I have.
I just don't share that fear. I mean, we have definitely philosophical differences, and we've talked about that.
Right.
Ray?
I have two questions, if I may. One, I appreciate it, Stuart, if you'd explain a little bit more about what this liability fund money is.
Sure. So every year we set aside a certain amount of money for liability. We pay a flat amount to the pool that we are members of. The amount that we pay into the pool is based off of our anticipated payroll. We share liability with a number of other cities. Our portion is we have a $25,000 self-insured for ourselves. And then from $25,000 to $1 million, we are pooled with 16 other cities. Above $1 million, we are pooled with an even bigger group of people. They tell us what they would anticipate that we would need every year. We put that aside into our liability fund. We've had some very good years. We've also had some refunds from the pool because our ending payroll that we're actually charged on is lower than our anticipated payroll. The way they anticipate the payroll is they take your payroll from 2 years ago and inflate it by 10%, assuming that you're giving on average 5% pay raises. Over the last 4 years, we have not been giving any pay raises to our staff, and in fact we've been reducing payroll by the reduction of the number of employees we have, so that we've been receiving refunds from them. We also every year have an actuarial study done on our outstanding liabilities by an actuary to tell us what we need to have in reserves for ourselves. Over the last number of years, we have put aside about $500,000 more than we need to cover our known and unknown reserves, because there's also something called IBNR, incurred but not reported claims. So the actuaries make an estimate of what those are, as well as our reported claims and what our reported losses are. So we have about $500,000 in fiscal year 11. At the end of fiscal year 10-11, we had about $500,000 in that fund that was not needed for IBNR or our known claims. So that's where, and being on the conservative side, I would not recommend putting all $500,000 because we've had a number of good years. Any person in the risk field would tell you the more good years you have, the more likely you're going to have that bad year. And I would not want to drain that fund completely, because at one point in time we thought that was a prudent number to put in. It's just that we've had good years. But having $100,000 plus knowing that our own deductible is only $25,000 for liability, it would take 4 hits to go through that $100,000. So I think that's a pretty safe number, plus what we put in every year. So that's why I would say that at some point that $400,000 becomes available. It's just a matter of when does, and I agree, it's what is the philosophy of this council? When would they want to use that? Because that money is legitimately available for some use.
Okay, so that answers my first question. Appreciate it. Very clear. Thank you. The second question has to do with where we're at on the Parks and Recreation budget. Because there are a number of items in the budget material we have, because they were listed as unsure as to where the council was at, are now listed in here as, as 0. And I don't think we really discussed all of them. And so are we going to go over that tonight? Or
yes, we will.
Is that the intent?
That is the intent. So the bulk of the $233,680 for items still under consideration is Parks and Recreation.
Okay.
But there were some other minor things here and there that I did not hear clear direction on, that I just like a little bit further
Okay, so
guidance.
we are going to address all.
We are going to address that. What I was
good.
anticipating doing was having Clay go through the items that were going to be brought back over the next several months.
Okay.
And then I was hoping to be able to go through the items still under consideration, and then from there to talk about the master fee schedule. From there, talk about priority-based budgeting, and then from there, talk about successor agency budget.
Mm-hmm.
So I still have a number of items.
In some of those instances, there's kind of an overlap because some of the things that we might want to say, okay, we'll fund it for the foreseeable future, but we're going to be discussing whether that's going to be a long-term commitment or not.
Right.
So they could be in both, some things could be in both categories.
I would anticipate a number of them will be. As, you know, staff brought back that question of, you know, if we were to try and get to a balanced budget without VWR, how would we go about doing that? And that's why staff brought back the 10, 20, 30, and 40% cuts. I would anticipate that if the city council decided to create a budget based on no VWR and no recology, that you would ask us to come back fairly quickly to say what kinds of packages could be put together to create that $2.1 million deficit. And that would lead to a number of council conversations. And I think that's where the assistance and the guidance from the city council from a policy perspective as to what are the priorities and how do those priorities look like. What is the priority for fire? What is the priority for police? What is the priority for public works? So that way staff could put together 2 or 3 different kinds of packages on how to get to that 2.1. And I would assume that a number of programs that you are funding, that you would say are funded in this budget, would no longer be funded based on those kinds of, on a number of those packages. So I fully agree is, you know, what you're doing tonight isn't a permanent, isn't a forever decision. I mean, that's the reason we brought back the $500,000 list. That was something, you know, that Council Member Richardson had challenged me with this time last year. She said, you know, I think there is about $500,000 worth of expenditures that council has added into the budget over the last 10 years when the times have been good that we should look at and read and discuss again. And I, you know, would say, I think I said, I don't think it's quite as high as 500. I think it's closer to 300,000. And when I went back and looked at the budget, in fact, it was at that 500,000. And that's how I came up with the list that was in front of you this year, was looking at over the last 10 years, what were those policy types of decisions that had been added back to the budget. Not that I had any desire to say any of those shouldn't be funded, because I think over the last 10 years, each one of those that are in the budget is important. I think each one of those had not only one, but a number of people from the public say that those things were needed in this community. I don't think anybody would doubt that having a school bus running kids to Terra Nova and to Oceana is not needed in this community. Or having I guess better way to say it is having a way of getting children to their high school, as Councilmember Conway said, is an important thing in this community. And when council had the money, they made the decision that we would be able to fund it. I think if we didn't have the money, that would be a good conversation to have. I think how we funded some of our nonprofits in the past would be another conversation. How we, whether or not we do tree removals. Do we do them every year? Do we do them every 2 years? Do we do them every 3 years? I mean, and that's why that $500,000 list came into being, because, I was standing here this time last year, and the conversation was, are we creating a structurally sound budget? And the answer I could have given you this time last year was yes, if I knew recology was going to happen, or yes, if I knew VWR was going to stay. And I think we've proved that we do have a structurally sound budget based on either of those two scenarios. But in order to ensure that we are spending the money in the best way that we can, the subcommittee looked at a list that I drew up of 500,000, and they said, yeah, those are good items for council discussion. And as you have already gone through, you've looked at about, out of a $500,000 conversation, or $560,000 conversation, $111,000 you said are not needed for next year. So in fact, the request was made is how can we further reduce this year's budget while still providing the same base level of service? And where is the? It's I would not say it's the low-hanging fruit anymore, because through the conversations you've had, each of these decisions have been a difficult decision. But we're not at the upper level of the tree yet. I mean, when you get to the upper level of the tree, you're talking about, do you want to have a 3-person crew, a 2-person crew, or no person crew in town? I mean, that's really, the ultimate kinds of, those are the hard decisions. Do you run a police department that has 2 people on staff all the time, or do you run a police department where you're calling for help from other communities? And how do you do that? Do you run programs where your seniors have, you're assured that your seniors have 1 warm meal a week, or do you have some seniors who may not have that opportunity? Those are not. I didn't get into the business of government to not do those kinds of things. No one, I don't think anybody ran for council not to be able to provide services for this community. I think there's a love of this community that the council members have, the community has, the staff has, and we recognize the difficulty of it. And we're just, we're trying to figure out how to help you make those kinds of policy decisions in a way that makes sense and provides for this community what they deserve.
Mr. Mayor, may I add one thing to the report that they're going to come back in about 3-4 months?
First, that was very nicely said, Stuart, and I'm glad that you not only an employee of the city, but that you're a citizen of this community, because that came from the heart, and I value that. Thank you. Okay.
You mentioned that, first of all, again, I echo the comments. I really appreciate you taking on the recommendations and do what needs to be done with the reduced staffing that we've had. Part of some of the items that we're going to be coming back to the council, could we also add how we're going to build up our reserve? Where can we get money? How we can prioritize so we can add some of the infrastructural capital needs that we have. Those are really important that I think.
Let's save that question for when Clay comes.
Sure, that would be good. I just wanted to say, with the work that I do, go to a very financially bad situation and turn them around so they don't go into bankruptcy, is we check to see what is the income and what is the expense, the for sure income and expense. If I was dealing with this situation right now and would say, okay, VWR left with $2 million that we're not going to get, but yet we have $1 million coming from such and such an organization, I would really first look at my structural budgeting. What am I paying for? What am I not doing to make sure that the needs are met? And then I would use the extra money that is coming is to build up the reserve, to build up the future so the budget would not be shaky every year. State takes the money away, or ecology leaves, or this and that. We should not be in a situation like that. And I think you and I agree, even though you call it philosophical differences, I think you and I have exactly the same thing, except that you tend to be more hopeful. I'm a financial person. I'm a financial person. Financial people are very conservative, they try to live within their means. That's the difference, not that.
I mean, if I may, I agree with you. Financial. I go and hang out with 400 of the most depressed people in California every year. When I go to the finance directors meetings, and I agree. We are by nature very practical. We would say. We'd say pragmatic. Yes. Is the way we would say it.
Pessimistically pragmatic.
No, practical. And we need people like you.
No, and I think it's.
Do.
And I think the question is looking at it from both sides. I think if we're going to look at how do we build up reserves, the policy in the past has been to keep a minimum of 50% in reserve. We have about a $1.6 million budget. And we will have about, and I have to look at the sheet of paper exactly, but I think we will end this fiscal, I think even with this deficit, I think we will end the fiscal year with $6 million in reserve. So I think we are still at that 50% that City Council has said. But, I was at a council meeting a number of years ago.
Which for this city, if I may, Stuart, for a city of our size is an extremely healthy reserve. You compare it to some of the other cities around here.
There are very few cities in the state that could boast a 50% reserve of their expenditures. Absolutely true. In Nevada, when I was there, you were only allowed to keep 8.5% in reserve. That was anything above.
Gambling is legal there, right?
Anything above 8.5% would be considered available for unions to bargain over. And if you had more than 8.5% in reserve and you went to arbitration, you would lose your arbitration. So, so when I came here and we had, the reserves that we had, it's been a much easier place to do a lot of this work, because a lot of the work that the council has done, that staff has done, has been able to be done slowly. I think the way I said it 4 years ago is that we were going to grow into a smaller budget. And Clay was laughing at me at the term because you don't usually grow into something smaller. But that's what we've done. We've been able to grow into a smaller budget. We are still looking at ways through negotiations to ensure long-term financial stability. We've had those conversations. We are still looking, we're not looking at replacing, as I said, when the Director of Marina Services leaves, we're not looking at replacing it with the same level position. That we're looking at how do we split out those duties. In Parks and Recreation, when the supervisor just left, which was an unanticipated position, we didn't come to council and say let's replace that immediately. What we said is let's see how we can absorb that within existing staff, and we have a plan to do that. And that's why when I talked about San Carlos no longer makes sense for us, because their structure would have been bigger than our structure in administration. So I agree. I not only do you not want to be a council member who sits here and says, I was the council member who was here when this place went bankrupt, I wouldn't be getting a job anyplace else in the state. If I was a finance director and I could not look at my next employer squarely in the eye and said I did everything I could as a finance person to inform the council of the information, to provide them as best of recommendations as I could to prevent it, and to, in fact, raise the alarm bell every time I could. And I can honestly say I don't think we're there yet. I mean, I think, and this is the thing that we've had the conversation about often, is if we find out in September, October, that for whatever strange reason we're not going to get recology, believe me, Clay and I will be here in front of you saying, all those percentage cuts that we were talking about, we need to figure out how to implement them between now and June 30th. Mm-hmm. Because, yes, our reserves can take a $2 million hit this year, but our reserves cannot take, and I think you said this last time, Seppi, that our reserves cannot take 2 years of $2 million hits. Absolutely true.
I agree.
So the question, and I understand the difficulty of this question. I wouldn't be standing up here and expressing it if I really didn't believe this. I understand the difficulty of saying, do I bet on recology and roll the dice for 6 months, not knowing? I have two options in that point. I can either say, I'm not going to bet on recology, and I'm willing to make the hard decision today. And and it is a very hard decision. I think we've talked about how do we get to $2 million. And then if recology does come in, the question is how do you build back that kind of an organization? I've heard this, everyone on the city council, and staff truly does appreciate it, that you said a lot of good things about staff. The challenge would be is if we created, if we went forward and said we're going to cut $2 million, or that last $1 million today, and we came back and gave you a plan on what this place would look like without recology, I think everybody understands that there would be some number of people who would need to leave. How do you go back adding those people? Or do you wait 6 months and say, oh, great, I gave everybody a 6-month hiatus, but now they're really, now it's even worse. And I understand that challenge. I mean, I understand how difficult it is when you're elected, that this is not the conversation anybody who's elected wants to have. That balancing act of how do you do those things is not easy. As your staff person, the best I can do is give you options. I'm not here to say one way is better than another, and and I wish I could, but the answer is my crystal ball is as good as anybody else on the council. I don't know which way is better. I can't sit here and tell you definitely do this, definitely do that. I feel for you. I understand the issues that you're facing. And I understand that the subcommittees went through a number of exercises to get us to where we are. And I think a lot of those exercises have paid dividends. It's created a lot of good conversation amongst the council and amongst the community and amongst staff. So I mean, I think everything is working the way it should. And I want to congratulate, as your staff person, I want to congratulate you for that guidance that we've had to date, because it really has focused staff on what's important. I had that conversation with my Parks and Recreation staff. As I said when I made my presentation, is that what we realize is important is providing an opportunity for parents to work, so that we would, whatever it would take, we would still provide childcare for parents who are working, because we know that's important. Other things may not be as important. So, this guidance, this crisis that we may or may not be facing, has allowed us to have that kind of a focus. So I think everything is working exactly the way it should. I think, everything, we would always wish things took less time to do, but in democracies are set up to be deliberative and to be thought-provoking and to be slow. The way you do things quickly in government is to have one person, an autocrat, making the decision. And, we're not that, and I think this community is very proud of the fact that, one of the things I always hear about this community, the nice thing about living in Brisbane is that you can come down to City Hall and they will listen and they will care. And if you live in bigger cities, you don't have that same feeling. And when you don't have that feeling, you don't do it. And it makes the decision for council members a lot easier. It's like sitting on a corporate board and not seeing the 10,000 people that Bank of America decides to lay off tomorrow. You get to see everything. You get to see the impact of every decision you make, and it makes the decisions harder. So, I mean, I'm here to do whatever I can to help you with that, and that's what I'm trying to express at the moment. With that, I think I'm probably as done as I'm going to go home now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Good job, Stuart.
Yeah.
So was the brightening of lights telling him his time was up?
Yes. I felt like I was in,
Was that subtle enough?
I was like in the Oscars.
Okay, so as we discussed at the last meeting, there have been a number of items that have come up over the last few weeks that we have said that we want to put on schedule to discuss over the next 4 months. And I think one other item came up this evening. So in many cases, these are just items that were talked about. There wasn't any specific direction or vote from the council. So if there's something here that you don't want to, or you don't think merits further discussion, then certainly bring that up. So the first one was the marina maintenance and funding. The second was the impact of separating the marina out from the Parks and Recreation Fund. That's a financial issue. Updated organization and classifications. That's the organization table issue that we've been discussing for a few months now. The second is the successor agency separation. And the last one on this slide is the Parks and Recreation Program review, including fees, which you went through the other night and now sent out to the Parks Commission to evaluate.
I don't think we did that yet.
I'm probably a little bit ahead of you, yes.
You can
I'm
complete it.
anticipating that's what you're doing.
Okay.
Okay, you are correct. The next was an item that was brought up the other night, analysis of reducing the number of ball fields. The capital improvement program, and I would also add to that funding options. As you know, we do have one program in place that Stuart referred to, but there may be other options we want to look at there. The fire station issue, water and sewer rates, economic development program, a kind of comprehensive overview of the total contributions to the two school districts. And I also just put on this list the ongoing issues of the business license fee and the potential fee for the tank farm. One thought.
Could we talk about adding things to that at this point?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, well, the thought that I had, Seppi had an item that she wanted to add, and I think now would be the time to do that. And then the item that I wanted to add to the list is something we're doing, it just isn't on the list, and that is the labor negotiations.
Okay.
Because that's something that's ongoing, that affects the budget, how the outcome of that affects the budget,
And we do hope to have that finished in the next.
And we hope to have it finished during this period of time.
Yeah. Okay. So.
And also want to communicate to the public that we are doing that. We are involved in labor contractual negotiations, and the outcome of which is not resolved yet because we're in negotiations.
Correct. So the item that to be responsive to your question, Seppi, was the building up of the reserve, strategies for building up of the reserve.
Right.
Are there any other items that council would like to?
May I continue on this? The thing is, we cannot continue cutting staff. We just cannot. It's doubling up duties, and then conversation comes up, we need to cut salaries, and I know I wouldn't want to work in an environment that every day somebody is going to be talking about my salary need to be cut, need to be cut, need to be cut, because that's not the only area that you can have a sound financial, fiscal responsibility. So building back reserve could be part of how do we build up the organization and have healthy working environment, healthy services to community, and healthy environment.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think we want to have a strategy there, and we also want to have talk about that, where that fits into the overall priorities.
Clay, tonight we're going to be going over the priorities, but then once we establish how we're going to determine priorities, then we also have to look at what are those costs? What are the costs to the city to provide for those priorities? And so the other night we were looking at trying to find what that cost recovery is. And so
yes.
I would like for us to come up with an agreement amongst the council of what we consider to be the expenses for a particular service. Because in the analysis that we had the other night, we were looking at depreciation, things like that. The staff person that
Supervisor.
Supervisor, right? And it took a big chunk of the costs that went into providing a particular service, and thus then made the ability to recover the cost much more difficult. And so
It diluted it.
yeah, and so I would like for us to be able to come up with an agreement of how we determine what are the expenses.
Right.
Then from that, we come up with an agreement of, well, if something is 100%, say, of cost recovery after we've determined what the expenses are, we're going to fund that, no matter where it is, say, in the list of priorities, because it's being covered by its own activity. So, and so that is something definitely that I would like to discuss, and how we, eventually, get our hands around creating that priority-based budget that we can stand behind.
So we put this cost recovery on the list?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a pretty good discussion on the Parks and Rec part of that, which is really where cost recovery comes in terms of revenue that comes in. Our other services, that's not really applicable to, for the most part, to police and fire. So,
Yeah.
That's right, and we do have, yeah, you're right about that.
If I may, Cliff, in response to, I guess, as we're talking specifically about recreation, was that we did have an agreement of looking, I understood at total cost, okay, but we never really agreed on how we would look at it as far as cost recovery. And I think that's what you're asking, is looking at it, because, we all, I think, at least I recall at least 3 or 4 of us saying that we wanted to look at the total cost of the program, but not necessarily like if a building's depreciation. The building is there, whether it's used or not, so it's going to have depreciation. I think that's where you're going at, is how we look at how we recover that and what the percentage is, because it does make a difference if we look at that and if we look at the supervisor attached to that, and I think that's what you're requesting, right? Just
Yeah,
to be clear on it. Because there's 2 ways, we wanted to look at the full total recovery, and then also
Sure. When you're trying to establish the priorities, you're really looking at what effect does that service or that program have on the community, and how much of the community, as we
the greater good.
From our meeting the other night. I mean, when we were talking about the teen center, it appears that we're only really affecting under 10 people, and we're spending $87,000. And we know that if we did that with many programs throughout the community, we would be in some really bad financial shape. But then, as Stuart was, so eloquently, talked about, what are the things that make your community great, and you want to make sure that you are connecting with all of those different groups that are within your community. But how do you target that money in the most effective way? And that's probably another thing. How do we really effectively engage and spend the money on those different sectors of our community?
Well, one approach to this is that there's a cost analysis, and then there's also program evaluation. And I think as we go through these issues, those items that we think need further program evaluation is probably, it wouldn't be a bad idea to make some side list on that also. Because I think the conversation we had the other night, which is an appropriate one, is that you're spending whatever dollars on teens, are you getting the bang for the buck that you want? Or is there another way of doing the program? And so that's really more of a program evaluation as opposed to a cost analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that's kind of what we were looking at, is program or lack of program, or programming deficiencies.
Those are 2 separate things.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they come together, but they are different.
Mm-hmm. I like that program evaluation, cost analysis. I think that's really good.
So this, okay, I'm going to go back.
Sorry. I think it's also important to point out that under the economic development category, that there's short, medium term, and long term. And the short term is trying to deal with the properties that we have vacant and get some tenants, and the medium term is to how to make what we have available more attractive. Have some programs which I know we're going to get some recommendations on from the Economic Development Committee.
Yep.
The long term is, we're primarily talking about the Baylands. And so when we look at that whole development project, and we think about establishing the long-term contract that hopefully we'll be making for that project, then one of the things we want to keep in mind is the revenue service consequences for the city. And I know people should know that we're working on that too, and we have a firm that, is studying that for us. And so, that's on the plate too, and we certainly are aware of that. But we don't expect, that to be helping us in the next few years. It's going to be a while before that comes to pass. And even on the Baylands, there are some things that we might be able to do sooner rather than later, and that we're working on too. So, again, I think these are things that need to be made clear.
Okay. We'll footnote it as such. Okay, this is a calendar. So the red are the holidays, the green denote other meetings, orange are city council, and the blue or blue-gray, I guess, are open dates. I don't know that we need to make a decision tonight, but one of the thoughts I had was that we dedicate some off Mondays to workshops where we would try to tackle maybe a couple of these items at a time. What I was planning on doing was coming back to you on July 23rd, your next council meeting, be on next Monday, with a proposed schedule of when these items can come back. And there may be a few of these that are appropriate to push beyond the 4 months. Capital improvement program is one thought there, because that's not an immediate issue in terms of funding. It's these, each of these issues, or most of these issues, are going to be take some time and take some significant conversation. A few of them will be relatively easy to dispense with, but for the most part, they're going to take some time. So I'm thinking that in any given evening, it's probably overly ambitious to have them more than a couple items.
Yes, no, I agree. But I think coming back to it in September is a good idea, because it's still going to be fresh with us, but it gives us a little bit of time to be away from it as well. I think it also, it keeps us honest. We said this is what we were going to do, and I think establishing some dates says
So
we're
I
committed to
take
it.
it on that when you come before the council in July, that it'll be a question of not only additional meetings, but some kind of schedule of which of these items are going to be discussed when and in what order.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm working with staff right now on
Prioritizing.
prioritizing, and also just, how soon we're going to be ready to really come bring.
Yeah, because
an
we're
item.
still waiting for Mitch to come back with the framework on what that economic development person, what their duties
Program.
would be, right? And so.
Which will.
Yeah, I know there's been some opposition to it, but there's also that wanting to, how do we bring extra revenue to the city? And, that's, I think having that person in place is key to making that happen.
Well, the only thing we've heard for the economic development is this visit with somebody in Canada. We haven't heard anything about what are we doing about the vacancies. How fast are we getting to that? Those are why it's not just, opposition to that. It's what is the whole picture? What are we doing with economic development?
Yeah,
All I've heard is just one item, and that's no thank you, ma'am.
Well, we had a whole meeting about it. We went through that thing, and
okay.
you complimented the
No, I agree,
about
but
the good job that
I
they
do.
did.
I think they did. No, I did, which is true. But report was done. Report is not action. That's what I'm talking
I think this is the next step.
Thank you,
Let's get
thank
that
you.
one.
Let's go on, please. Yes, let's go
We
on.
do have follow-up.
Need people.
So, Terry, do you want to, something you want to say?
Well, I think we are jumping the gun talking about that person and hiring a
Yeah.
person for a position that,
Yes.
in my opinion, while it's important to have economic development, the thought of a full-time, dedicated person who's going to trade shows and promoting us is really, really expensive. We're talking $400,000 in a cost for a program like that. And I think that to make it sound like it's a done deal is a disservice.
Well,
Exactly.
let me just say it.
Good job.
Let's give an update of where we're at.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you know,
there's a misperception.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I mean, it's definitely not a done deal.
As if
This is
subcommittee
let me
making
just-
decision for the
can I-
council.
Can I finish?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Yes.
So it says items for further discussion, right? That's what we're talking about here. Items for further discussion. It doesn't say, okay, yeah, when we're going to have this person in place. No, it's
know, but-
items for further discussion. And so we're going to get the framework back from Mitch Bull of how this program will be put in place. We have talked about, you know, what type of person should be in place. Should it be a city employee? Should it be a you know, independent contractor that goes through the chamber? You know, how much would we budget for that position? That's something we've talked about in the subcommittee. We're waiting to bring that back so that we can have the discussion about it. And we haven't had that opportunity yet to have the discussion to come out and say that we're going to spend $400,000 on something.
Well,
Is you know, I don't know where you got that, but it is not even close to.
when you look at a
I mean,
full,
maybe about you know, I don't know. Well, anyways, but yeah.
when you look at the cost for a full-time traveling out there person, it's going to get up into those kind of figures if that's what you're looking for. But when you say this person, it sounds like you've
Yes, they have
arranged
decided.
a position and that this is, and so that's what I take offense to.
Yes.
is
This hypothetical person.
this hypothetical position. Maybe if you called it a position that we're going to discuss, or a function, but to call it a person, when this guy gets here, it's
could be a
like,
woman,
it
yeah.
sounds like it's a done deal.
They had talked about
Okay,
having the
you know,
chamber person
well,
to do
here's the
it.
thing, you
Can I-
know.
can I-
Well, let me just finish. You know, when any decision that would be made about funding this particular program is going to come from all of us. There aren't any done deals. You know, it comes from us. So I don't know where you're coming from with
Okay.
that. I mean, it's just like out in left field. You know.
I'm sorry, it seems that way to you. It just seems to left field to me that we're talking about this person.
To me too.
When this person
Okay.
comes on board.
Program.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take back the word. When we have the discussion about do we need to have an economic development program? Okay.
Right, and then-
That makes it, if that makes it
makes me much
easier
happier.
to
Right.
swallow.
Can I
That
say
makes me
something?
much
It
happier.
seems to me, and I'm going to direct this to you, Terry, and to you, Seppi, it seems like whenever we talk about economic development, particularly with this subcommittee, that you guys have this perception about something of done deals and things that are being
Yeah.
done. And it's like, you know, we're getting attacked. I feel attacked. I feel this subcommittee is being attacked on things that decisions haven't been made. And I think we've been very open about what we're doing. There's no deals being made behind closed doors, and and we communicate to you, and then, you know, you want to jump on it before it's like there's nothing there yet. And it's like, you know, we communicate this stuff, and then, you know, it's like what I'd like to request is, you know, before you speak emotionally, to back off a little bit and you know, let us at least try and present something. Hey, you know, no, really.
Yeah, no, thank you for putting things into perspective. At the same time, sometimes when comments are made, I get exactly the same impression. I'm not in the committee, but when I have heard bits and pieces here, we have decided that this is good for us to do. Let's look inside and see how you guys communicating that. We are not inside. We don't know what you have decided. Just a
We haven't
few things we
decided
hear. Well,
I mean, that's.
or the recommendation that is coming is we
how-
think this is the way to go.
Well, I mean,
Who makes the decisions for the city council?
We do.
Huh?
We do.
We. collectively,
Correct.
5 of us.
Correct. I
Okay?
hope somebody
subcommittee makes a
And that's
recommendation.
right. What's the role of subcommittee?
The role of
Right?
subcommittee is to
get-
come up with
gather
options.
information, and that's
Right, to come up
And
with
don't-
options.
You know, when we have this
Not
economic
saying
development
that
program.
there's a guy to
there's-
do this.
Let me
That's
finish.
it.
There's going to be lots of options for us to talk about.
I think we're
You
going
know,
to be
and-
here until 1 o'clock. We haven't dealt with the budget.
Okay, but I think, Clay,
I'm done, we're ready to go on the map.
I have one comment for you. I want to thank you because when I saw this schedule and it said other meetings, I thought, oh my God, does he really expect us to be here for all of these meetings instead of that there are other meetings
Yeah, no, they're
place here?
correct.
So
Clarify that.
thank you for that.
Yeah.
And because of this, I'm not seeing anything July and August that these items are happening. Is that due that we're taking time off?
Well, I don't know.
August, or you just didn't want to schedule it for these items until then?
Well, it's a little bit of both. The issue with, I mean, you do have one meeting scheduled currently for July. I would imagine on that July 23rd meeting, we will put the question to you if and when you want to meet in August, and then go from there. I do know, in talking with members of the council in terms of vacation schedules and stuff, that July and August is a little bit problematic. So
So, Mr. Miller, when are you coming back from your time off?
Yeah, I'm back before the July meeting.
yeah, the July is not.
So July is not an issue, and first 2 weeks of August is issue for you, right, Cliff?
that is correct. I'm leaving July 30th and coming
Right.
back on the 15th of August.
Right. So after that, in August, we might have some opportunity if we needed to meet.
I would prefer just to meet in September. I think as you can tell, it's a pretty heated,
I agree.
thing. And I think, it'd be good to just have some time off.
I think we have to wait until
I did
July to
put-
see what the issues are. I
Okay.
mean, like last summer, we didn't have much choice, as you recall. So sometimes things come up, you don't have any control over.
Yes.
Yeah, but when we're talking about these items here.
These items, I think,
Okay,
can be
and so
for
and
September,
that's what we're talking
but
about.
whether we meet or not in August, I think it's premature to decide now.
I agree.
Not on your
But we're
agenda.
not
I
even
agree.
talking about that.
No,
We're talking
I-
about these
Yeah.
things here.
I didn't mean to
let's talk
start
July.
anything on this. And for the most part, I try to be somewhat quiet over here. So, thank you.
All right.
Appreciate your feedback. All right.
Oh, boy, oh, boy.
And we all did it with a smile on our face, too, which was cool. So. All right.
So I was thinking the next item to talk about was the items that I haven't heard enough direction on yet. They were yellow. I'm not quite sure what that color is.
It's yellow.
Oh, it's not. It's not from what. It's not up there.
I think it's for a Pantone color.
It's yellow there. I'm not quite sure what
It's
it is
the
on my
paint.
screen. What?
It's the paint.
It is. The RGB doesn't quite work well for me.
Did we get a printout of this?
I forwarded it to you last week.
No,
Or
we
Monday.
don't have a copy.
You had it. You had it on Monday.
Did we?
Yes.
Then I would have it. Okay.
They weren't yellowed on Monday, but they were. It's all there. All I did was put the yellow on today.
Says overheads for tonight, and there's 6 of them, right?
Yes, it's here. Oops, no.
Okay, I didn't have email, so I didn't print anything.
Yes.
I'd like
Can you
this
print
printed, please.
Do you have your thing with you, Terry? iPad?
I do.
Yeah, it's on there for Monday.
Okay, my system wasn't updated, so I wasn't able to get my email, and I
Oh,
It's okay, we need hard copies, so that's it. Let's just,
think it's
I
just one
apologize.
page, isn't it?
It's 3.
3 pages. I would rather have it
3.
on paper to make notes.
4. 4 pages.
Okay, I would still rather have it on paper.
That's fine. I understand.
what
I
heading?
apologize.
What heading is it under, though?
Items. You think like council discussion?
Council discussion items. Okay, right. Okay.
But we can talk before I get
Oh,
my paper,
Okay,
if you'd like.
it's up to council.
Yeah, I think we can handle it.
Okay. So there were a few items under the city council that I did not quite hear full direction on. There was the co-sponsorships that I didn't hear, the library, and then, of course, as Councilmember Miller pointed out, Parks and Recreation, and then there were some left over in central services. I was just thinking if we went sequentially down the list.
Let's go. Start from the top.
That's what I thought.
And 1, 2.
So, educational material for city management and leadership. This is just money that's in the budget available if the council members need books on different topics. The money's available. If there's
Could we make that 500 instead of 1,800?
make it yes.
Well, but was there a request for those materials last year?
This is something that is, I will tell you, it's a carryover in the budget from year
It
to year.
stays. It just
It stays there. It doesn't normally get spent, but it's one of those things that as staff, we never want to reduce what's in the council budget unless the council. I do.
I think we could do with this item, totally or just,
Well, I can't think of anything that you
Yeah.
use it for. I don't know, Ray or Terry
I don't-
being new
Yeah,
new
I
folks.
don't
Is there
either.
something that you think that needs to be provided?
no.
Or
Not that I know of, and I would be certainly happy with leaving a token $500 in case there is something.
Yeah, or even 300, or even 200.
Whatever.
But, yeah, I would, okay, why don't I make a motion to take it, 1,500 of it out?
Well, I don't think do we
Second.
need to motion it.
I mean,
Or we
okay,
just-
We can do it by consensus if we
Sure,
agree.
okay,
Okay, so that one's going to be $500.
no,
300.
325.
300. I'm sorry,
325.
I was looking for my last drive.
That's all right. 325.
320, yeah.
325.
Yeah, removing 1,500.
Okay. Ceremonial events, these are, anytime there's something that goes on where you're recognizing somebody and you have a cake, or you give somebody a plaque, things like that. So this does happen periodically throughout the year.
And still appropriate. I mean,
Yeah.
We're going to leave all 500?
Yeah.
Okay.
I won't spend all of it, but
You may not. Mayor Art Appreciation Awards, this is for the art appreciation
We
for
keep that.
that event that you throw every year for the person.
We keep that.
I think that's appropriate.
Okay.
Did we leave the event in?
The Mayor's Art Appreciation Award is separate from the Artist Evening of Sharing.
Okay,
They are two separate things,
that happened on the same day.
or not.
Okay.
Last year, they happened on the same day because they wanted to recognize
Moira.
the Moira at the event when you had more people. In the past, you've recognized our artists here at a council
Okay.
meeting and then broke for a cake.
Okay.
would we save more money if we did it as part of the Artist Night of Sharing?
I will bet you spent more than $300 as part of the Artist Evening of Sharing last year.
All right.
And part of it is because who the person was.
Okay.
That's just my guess.
Okay.
I don't think you're going to be spending as much this year as you did last year. Council celebrations.
Yeah, what
These
is-
are good things happen and beyond ceremonial kinds of events. If you want to have like a ribbon cutting or something exciting happens in town, we might want to use this for like the playground. We open the
But
playground.
are we anticipating anything coming up?
We are opening the play. We are anticipating opening a playground
Got it,
in September.
got it.
I don't know if Parks and Recreation. When bathrooms got built, we would do one for bathrooms. I know there's a marina bathrooms. Anytime.
And what do we spend, can we,
That would probably would cover, when we did something like the bridge opening, where we had food and everything, that was a little bit more expensive. So it just depends on what level. So we will match the event to the dollar amount that we think that council thinks is appropriate.
Well, other than the playground, I don't really see us celebrating very much. I mean, we did our 50th year last year.
Right, and that
I
was-
would suggest we reduce that 50%.
I agree.
750?
Yeah.
Okay. Moving down, the next one was co-sponsorships, and I actually had a slide as to what we did last year.
Isn't that travel and training?
No, travel and training, you already made a decision.
Right.
You at the meeting, you approved $5,000 when we talked about it last time.
All right.
I mean, we can go through each one to see if you want to make any changes, but I was.
Okay.
We talked, I'm sorry, can I ask?
Because it wasn't updated, so.
The Citizen Academy, we said to take it off because next year we're not going to have Citizen Academy.
Right.
It shows it.
It's under the council reduction column. The middle
Oh,
column is the
sorry.
council
Sorry,
approved
thank you.
column. Yeah,
Thank
it goes
you.
budget, council approved, council reduction.
Got it,
So that's exactly what you had said.
got it, yeah.
But one thing, if I may, Mr. Mayor? One thing, Stuart, under the annual yard waste cleanup weekend, just so that we're clear on it, that the scavengers do provide a certain number of dumpsters for free. Is that right, Clay?
Correct, and all we've budgeted over the years is just extra.
The
We
additional.
still have-
So we could still have a program this year. It's just it would be reduced, and that would be something that we'd have to communicate to our constituency, that it's going to be on a very limited form, but it will still happen. So just,
You know, I didn't know that, so that's, because that wasn't made clear. We were talking about just being able to use your regular service and
Right.
put out some extra cans. But
Right.
I didn't know that the scavengers did supply debris boxes.
It's in our
but it
franchise
limited-
Yeah, that's part of the
in our
contract.
contract.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, so we decided to eliminate that whole amount then? Is that what we did?
That was what was decided at the last meeting. Yeah, it's back to that question about
Yes, yeah,
services and deficit and all that kind of good questions.
yeah, okay.
But, so, co-sponsorships, I had shown the slide previously, and I just can't remember everything that's there, so 1 second, let me pull that one up.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But we do have another picture that they're not using. Maybe we can have her fill it up.
get one down there.
Yeah, we can have her fill it up. Thank you.
Sherry left my flash drive, so let me go back and do the next one.
Stand by for
Can we
technical
take a
difficulty.
2 minutes break? Did you want to take a break?
I
Rather than waiting?
don't think
Cameras
it's going to
are
be
on.
that long.
Oh,
Or we could just move on to the subsidies to the library.
That's fine. We can come back.
This was a question that you had asked last time. So what we have found is that $9,000 of that is used for the holds, and about $14,000 is used for the extra hours. The holds are 75 cents a book, is what it costs, and the extra hours, as was reported, is 3 hours a week.
Can I get a clarification on the holds? Does that, if you requested an item, is that considered a hold?
Yes.
Okay,
So it's an item that you're requesting that's not in our library.
okay. Thank you very much.
but how you can go around it is check the library, and when they show they have it, you go pick it up then or
Yes.
order it.
Oh, yes. Well, you could, if you go to the library where it is, then there is no, but
Correct.
if you order it and it comes to our library, that would be 75 cents
Right.
normally.
Right.
But the city of Brisbane picks up all those costs under the idea that we have a small library, we can't keep a very large stock of books or materials. So in order to offset that cost, we
Right.
pay for the deliveries.
Right.
Maybe better definition than the word hold, but it's the term they use is hold.
Okay. So Stuart, if we shaved off 3 hours a week from the library being open, we would save about.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I make just a comment on that? I'd prefer to keep that in there right now.
Oh yeah, no, I do too.
That's something I think
That you do, yeah. If you got into
we'd
it,
really kind
that's
of like to
fine.
figure out what the impact is, especially if
Yeah.
we're finding that a lot of kids are actually utilizing the library. You know, I mean, that was indicated the other night during the.
But I
Parks and
thought this
Rec.
was only half an hour.
Well, they would have to figure out whether or not they were going to do reduce it half an hour a day, or pick 3. I mean, based on their scheduling, they would try and figure out how it would have the least impact on the services that they provide.
Right.
I mean, they're not trying to. They would not pick Monday through Wednesday 2 to 3.
Correct.
I mean, that's, their purpose is to serve the public as well.
Right.
So it would be what they would consider the least impactful hours.
I agree.
But, it might be early morning when you're having more of the young children. Or it may be in the evening when you're having the adults who are returning home. I mean, it's going to impact somebody. It's just a matter. I doubt they would do it in the middle of the day and close for half an hour in the middle of every day.
I would rather keep this item in the budget.
Until see what happens. Yeah.
But you did get, so this was the feedback that was given by the librarian?
Yes.
Okay.
So this comes back in September for further discussion.
I think the whole budget does, when we figure out where we really are.
Yeah, this is one of those things, like we're saying, if
For discussion.
find ourselves in that really
Yeah,
big
it's coming back
deep
for
hole.
discussion in September.
Well, yeah, you're right, Terry. The whole thing will come back if we find ourselves in a big hole.
Right.
you know.
Yeah, if there's
We want to know how that reduction of 3 hours is going to impact the library operations. Right now, we don't have the details for that.
Well, they told us that they would look at reducing it either in the morning or in the evening, is what
Right.
they said.
So who's going to impact?
Well, they would try and figure out which would have the least amount of impact, and in the amount of time they had to figure out, they didn't have that ability. But
Right.
we can
Come back
come back.
yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Before we go to co-sponsorships, let me run through everything else on these slides, and
Okay.
so we don't go back and forth. Obviously, the next one that we did not get to on Monday night was the Parks and Recreation issues. And my staff decided that one wanted to go to Hawaii today instead of being here with me. I couldn't understand why. But the sign maker materials, this is the paper that we pay for the community sign at the community park and the one up at Mission Blue area. It costs us $5,000 for paper. We have the printer already, and we use staff to input the information.
Seems like a pretty important communication device to maintain.
I agree with
Yeah,
that.
it's just amazing
yeah.
how much the paper costs.
I wanted to go back to crossing guard. What, did we decide to keep that in there? In the police? This is not highlighted, I don't remember.
Right.
For us, we didn't make decision on that.
Oh, I apologize then. I thought,
No, we did
Okay.
not decide.
I apologize.
We were talking to see if this could be done by a volunteer or from the school.
That's-
Parent activities,
Yeah.
this is something that schools do
That on the
with volunteers.
yeah.
We didn't decide that.
I think we talked about the fact that school was out at the moment and we would come back to it.
That's what I said, but it shows as if it's funded. I think this
Okay.
needs to be highlighted as,
Yeah, because the 2x2 committee was going to
Yeah.
discuss that with the school district.
But at this point, do we need to leave it in the budget?
You can just highlight it,
highlighted like the way we have
Okay.
highlighted.
come back and take a look at it, whether we
Okay.
decide that we're going to or not. I think, for myself, I think we should leave it in there. I think it's an important feature, but, I think the last time we did agree that we would discuss it if there were other
Way to
options
do it.
or opportunities
That's
on being
that's
able
the
to do it. Of
You're
course.
not saying that it's not an important
Sure,
function.
yeah, just
So-
in a different way.
But who
So I
pays for it?
can be clear, when you adopt the budget on June 18th,
No, we have to-
is this going to be an item that will be funded, or it will be an item that's not funded?
I think it has to be funded at this point, but we will just put it on on Clay's list of to be
Except that
discussed.
I don't think,
No?
right now, this is part of that 500,000 that is not in the budget. Am I correct?
No, that 500,000, so this is part of what was approved, that I was on that council-approved list, so this is part of that $900,000 deficit.
This is
The
part-
$100,000 that wasn't approved has been removed.
Okay.
So that $900,000 deficit would be as if you accepted everything on the council approved list and approved everything that's on the amount left to be determined list.
So this list is serious list. This is part of that 900,000.
Right.
Yeah, this 75, this seven,
Right.
yes, everything on this
Right.
list is part of that $900,000 deficit that's on either the
Right.
council approved or the amount left to be determined. If it's on the council reduction list, it has already been removed, and
Right.
that's not part of the 900,000. So
So
if you were to
Terry-
add one of those back, then
Right.
Your
So
deficit.
Terry, when we're saying that this is important, let's put it in, it keeps that 900,000. That's what I'm,
Right, it does.
yeah. Okay.
But I say leave it in to,
Okay, so when I come back on June 18th, this would be an item that would be funded, but you would still be talking, it will not, obviously it will not be spent until August at the soonest, because that's when school starts. So there's plenty of time to make a different decision. Okay. I apologize for that. Online registration fees, this saves us a lot of staff time. This is what we paid to the company that allows people to register for Parks and Recreation classes online at their houses. So if we did not have this, everybody who wants to be in Parks and Recreation program would have to come into City Hall.
don't we charge a fee for that? Or,
No,
no, so this is, we pay a company outside
yes.
to set this up.
Right. We charge everybody a processing fee for just signing up for a class, whether you do it online or in person. And we charge the same amount.
Well, it seemed like,
Stuart, when people sign, I've never signed up online for a Park and Rec class, but I have signed up for running races online. There's a company called Active.
ActiveNet,
Yeah.
same company we use.
Is that okay? And so so when I sign up for the race, there's a fee to
Processing fee.
processing fee, and I'm assuming that they then keep that. Is there a way to negotiate with them to have more of that be recovered through people signing up?
We would have to raise our rates for the programs by that dollar amount.
Okay. Would that be something like 50 cents?
I think it's more than that, actually. I think it's a couple
With
of
all of
bucks.
the classes that
Right.
would all add up, it would be.
Right. It would,
People.
I mean, it would raise the rates at least that $7,500.
I think it's a prudent expenditure because
I mean-
otherwise you're gonna.
Oh, no, I know, I definitely think it is. No, it's a good thing.
I mean, we
I
could
think-
raise rates to cover it.
I think he's saying, can that be passed along when it gets,
Yes.
People sign
so
up.
like a Ticketmaster fee, where
Right,
when you
sure.
buy a ticket, you
Exactly.
pay the extra $2 to be, so
Right.
that would reduce this expense.
Right.
And I think that might be burdensome.
I think prudent to do that.
I mean, if you have
Have all the people coming in who would maybe
Right.
come in instead of doing it online.
and the challenge is we would actually enter them into the program ourselves.
Right.
Because this is actually how we track all of our programs now. Because we don't track them on paper. We used to track them on paper and in books. Now we would put the person in here.
So
this
it's an
is
admin fee, whether it's our person or whether it's a
Right,
computer
Yeah.
person.
I mean, we do.
or if you don't want to do this, we would then have everybody come in and we'd be tracking everything by paper again. That's the alternative. That's the alternative we would have to save the money.
Do we-
If we want to pass the cost on to everybody, then if you are having a child sign up for 10 or 15 classes during the year, which is not an unusual thing for people, their additional cost would be could be $30-$40 more for our programs. And that's a legitimate question to ask, but maybe that might be part of what you want to ask the Park and Recreation Commission as they're reviewing their fees.
Okay.
I'm just,
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just,
I think we
I'm
have
thinking
to
process
leave it in
here.
at this moment.
Yeah, let's move on.
Parks and Recreation Commission special events, when they do their own openings and stuff, they spend money for their special events.
So what would that be this coming year?
They may not have any. I mean, the big one, I think the big one, as you know, is going to be the playground, but we'll cover that out, we cover that out of the council. Would have to be covered out of there. I don't know if there's anything else that they might do. can't think of any.
Okay.
Is that 0?
No, I think it's just leave it at 5.
Okay. Special merit awards, volunteer of the year, kind of thing.
We need to leave that in.
Travel and training, this just covers the cost to send myself, the any Park and Recreation Commissioner, and the supervisors to this annual CPRS conference. Last year it was down south, this year it will be in the north.
So can we reduce that amount?
I think that's going to be that. It depends on how many Parks and Recreation Commissioners want to go, is the challenge.
Excuse me, in other places that we go, we come and put a limit. 3 people can go, 4 people can go. Maybe 1 year this many people, 1 year that many people. So maybe we can do that, right? And say all 7 go. That's what we're trying to arrive at, some cuts.
Yes, I agree.
We can't just leave it up to them, to the people.
Leave it to new commissioners, since perhaps the current
Yes.
ones have already
Yes.
participated.
Yes.
We have
We added
5 new.
You have 5 new ones, though.
5 new
I
committees.
mean, what you might want to say is that no more than 2 commissioners in any 1 year.
Okay.
That's,
Then they can decide amongst
Well,
themselves.
this year it's here. So when you say up north, it's,
I think it's either San Jose or Sacramento.
and is it
last
a
time it was in
multiple
Long Beach.
day hotel kind of event?
If it's in Sacramento, my guess is it would be, I don't know exactly where it is this year. If it's in Sacramento, it would be a hotel. If it's in San Jose, it wouldn't be.
We
Is
can
it
also
one day?
make a decision that they can only participate at the conferences that are
In the north.
In the north, because
It saves
it's
airfare.
expensive
Yes.
airfare, and if it's in San Jose, they can commute. Whereas if it's in
Well, do you want to make the budget 1,500 then?
I was going to say make it, 1,000 or 1,200.
Whatever your pleasure.
Yeah, for travel.
I'm good with the 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ray, you okay with it? Cliff?
Okay. Telephone at Mission Blue Center. This is for the payphone.
No. Is that just a service?
Yep.
Is what we're paying just to have the phone there? So
Yes.
we pay that per year?
and they collect the money.
And do
Yeah.
we
It's
know-
not used very much. That's what.
Yeah,
it
and
costs.
really, the phone company is making the money. Most
Yes.
But isn't it a safety issue to have a phone there?
It started that way. Most people, there's usually a cell phone available.
Well, aren't the staff that is on, for safety, the staff member who is working at the Mission Blue has a company cell phone?
No. The only person we provide cell phones for is our supervisors.
Well, it's not a whole lot, but, it seems to me like the one at the community center would get more usage than the one at Mission Blue, just from the amount of children that use it that probably don't have cell phones. I'd be okay leaving them both. Just curious about them, I'm not sure what the usage is on it.
Not very
I mean,
much.
I could see the community center, not so much the Mission Blue Center. I mean, would
I
our
think it's
staff
I
people
think-
not have their cell phone?
Actually, I see the Mission Blue more critical than the community center, because community center is right in the here. There are a lot of help can be given immediately. Up there is further remote. That's my
Well, and the
reasoning.
community center has a phone across the street at the
Exactly.
grocery store.
At the market, there are a lot of options, but Mission Blue,
The seniors would say that the reason the one is at Mission Blue is because there was a conversation about the kids. The reason there was one at senior center is or the community center is because of the seniors.
we got to
Yeah,
do
but that
some
was probably
changes.
in the era before cell phone use.
Okay. You want to keep the one at Mission Blue and eliminate the one at the community center?
I'm okay with leaving them both.
I mean,
I'm just,
are we going to take things out or just leave them in there?
Can't make decision over 400.
To me, they're a bygone, item.
You know what? Let's take this off, because if we find it that critical need is there, you can always put it back. This is not death wish. This is, gosh, this is $800. Just take it off you when time comes. If you want it, put it back. It's not, doesn't take.
Okay, is that,
Well, am I hearing three people?
I'm not sure what that means. You mean not funded?
Seppi's saying take them both off.
just eliminate them, and if there's pushback from the community, then install them back in.
Not pushback, the need. If the need arises and we see we need it, then we put it back.
Somebody wanted to talk.
Is there any liability involved in this? Maybe not having a phone there?
I mean, there's many places in the city that we don't have phones.
So does that mean no?
It would be no more of a liability than we have at the tennis court, we have at the soccer fields, that we have at the community park.
Well, I guess we will hear about it, if that's the case. I mean, I'd prefer just leaving them, but I guess, Ray, I haven't heard from you.
Yeah, go for consensus.
Not to put you on the spot, but what's your $800
I'm either way.
decision?
I don't care. I think it's,
So,
I doubt they get much usage.
They do not get much use. That I do know.
The only argument that I would make in their favor is the same argument that we use as to why we keep a hardwire phone at home. Because a lot of people are switching to cell phones, but if you have a serious outage like an earthquake, usually the cell phones are gone. And if there's any phone that's working at all, it's the hardwire phone.
Right.
And that's what these phones are, right?
Right.
So in that sense, it could be a safety issue.
Yeah, but you need money.
Okay.
But of course you do 911, I mean, but,
I think, let's leave the phones there.
Okay.
That would be my,
yeah, okay. I mean, there's always can be the what ifs for everything, right? And so if you had an earthquake and you're at, and you're at the Mission Blue Center and.
well, that's also going to be a place where community will meet if there is a emergency in the area.
And we will have walkie-talkies there.
Yeah,
I mean, if we open it up as a shelter, I mean, our staff and Red Cross would have communication devices there. But I'm just here trying to put a number down.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think it's so remote. I think it's just, because it's there, we're just going to fund it.
let's go for it. Just let's move on with
I
something.
think
I
it's a
don't
waste
care.
of money.
Let's put it in.
Well-
Let's go.
Let's go to the toilets.
Jeez.
This
Yeah.
is 4 times
So what do you guys want to do?
expensive.
I say take it out.
I
Yeah.
hope not literally.
I say make it 0 for both.
Okay, so I'll tell you the rationale why it was put in. People were complaining that the fishermen who were down at the Fisherman Park area at the lagoon
What are you gonna do with
were
the
using
phones?
the lagoon instead
Yeah, okay.
of a portable toilet.
So what are we gonna do?
That's the reason we put one there.
All right, that's for that thing. But what about the phones? Are we going to get rid of them?
Oh, I-
Yeah, I say leave them. Leave
Okay, there's
them.
one.
Leave them.
We had 3 for safety reasons for the time being.
Yeah. I said leave it. Remember? Right.
Okay.
And as
Okay.
far as the porta
All right.
potties, I think that half the Brisbane arrests that happen out at the Fisherman's Park where they pick up all the DUI people that stop to use the porta potties. So that may impact our police.
So that's a safety issue. If that's the case, then it's moneymaker probably. I mean, the safety issue, keeping people off the road, so. That was put in a couple years ago, I think, because we had a.
We had people complaining that they were.
Citizen-driven complaint that, hey,
Where else are they going to go?
yeah.
I'm,
And there's always people there.
No, I agree to.
I mean, they're not usually, I don't
yep.
see Brisbane people there, but it's always a busy place.
As I said, I picked those items that were added in the last 10 years.
I think it's a hygiene issue.
Yeah, I think it's better than.
I mean, I'd love to see if we could reduce the fee somehow. Does it get a lot of use, Stuart?
Yeah, they charge by the use.
Are you thinking maybe we should put it as a coin operated? A woman after my own heart. The problem, of course, would be people may not decide to put the quarter in. and go back to using whatever method they were using before.
No, I was wondering if there was a cheaper way to achieve the service.
Oh, it's actually, my understanding, it is actually used.
So, well, let me ask this question, because the one that we have out there is ADA approved.
Okay.
Given the nature of that park, does it need to be ADA toilet?
I wouldn't know that. I'd have to ask Randy.
And if it doesn't, is there a cost differential?
We could check that out. So if we could provide it, you would like to provide it, but if we could provide it
would be better.
less expensively and still meet whatever requirements we have.
Right.
But for the time being, we'll put the 3,200 in, knowing that we may or may not spend the whole amount.
Right.
Okay. The Brisbane School District, this is the amount that we...
Before you do that, in the section ahead of the schools, there's the community center, which precedes the schools, and community center improvements. And my question is whether or not there needs to be any additional money there, or have we completed all that? Because there's been 4,000, 4,000, 7,500, and all of a sudden it's zero.
Oh, you're in the budget.
Where
instead
are
of
you
on
looking
this.
at, right?
Yeah, well.
He's in the real budget.
Right.
But because most of these that are on the list here are, zeroed out in the budget, but there are a couple of things that are zeroed out that are
Right.
not on the list here.
That's because those...
That's prior to the school things.
Right. That was because those were not needed.
Okay, that's
And we
my question.
already did everything we thought we needed to do.
So the reason I asked is that you have a consistent expenditure in the community center improvements, and so the presumption is that all the work that's been done
Yes.
recently, we won't need to do anything
That is
in this
that
forthcoming
was
year?
what was decided,
Okay.
or from a staff perspective.
And thank you, Cliff, for driving that.
Sure, thank you.
And what about the same thing in Mission Blue? There's the carpet,
They just redid all that.
Right.
floor, kitchen, all that's okay?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't need to worry about that?
Those were one-time expenses.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure, because that wasn't listed here, and I didn't
Right.
know what the explanation for the zero appropriation was.
If
Okay,
it-
thank you.
Okay. So then the Brisbane School District, this is the amount that we pay as part of our JPA agreement with the Brisbane School for the use of the building and the flow of the fields and everything. This is our annual payment to the Brisbane School District as part of the JPA agreement.
We're paying $37,000 to school district for, I'm sorry, repeat that again?
Yeah, things are listed here.
It is for things like the homework center for Brisbane and Littman, student user fees for technology, Littman multi-purpose room extra cleaning, the Littman, I don't know off the top of my head what MP stands for, restroom extra cleaning.
Multi-purpose, maybe?
Yeah, the multi-purpose room, restroom extra cleaning, you're right, and the BES space that we use. So it's just, I mean, it's part of the overall JPA agreement.
Okay.
So that's staying?
Yes.
Stay.
Okay, so the Jefferson Union High School
When does
District,
that come up for renegotiation?
The BES JPA? It's kind of a complex question because there's various aspects of the agreement that have different timeframes. And I think the overall, the way it was structured was the overall agreement is supposed to be reviewed every 5 years. And then there's, opt-out process for either side if they want to kind of materially change the agreement. But I'll get you the details on that. I haven't looked at it in a while.
Can we open it? Ray, would you support the idea of opening this and really looking at it? I'm not saying that to take it out. Just review that, since we've had 2 new council coming in, and also we had a measure passed for the school to see what the real need is. Sometimes I know from the school system, once the budget is there, we keep doing year after year the same thing, whether we really need it or not. But can the money be used in some of the other areas that could be more critical? I think we really, let's open this and look at this.
I'm happy to fund it in the budget, but put it on our list of things
Yes.
to
look at.
review.
Yes. Yes.
Are we still doing what really is the best expenditure of the money? I guess we really don't know.
I think you need to understand what the multi-purpose cleaning is the program is kind of tied to
Our
the,
program, right?
yeah, it's tied a lot of it to the after-school program,
Right.
which they call Club Rec, which
Right.
is a very successful
Right.
and a cost recovery program that program also uses the multi-purpose room. And so
Sure.
when you have a bunch of kids in there after school and they're not in there eating, they're playing games and stuff. And so there's some stress on the building. They use the bathrooms and stuff like that. So I think that, you really need to understand it from that aspect.
Oh, I agree,
Yeah,
but this $3,700,
37,000.
I'm sorry?
37.
37,000.
400, yes.
Yeah.
If it's part of the Club Rec overall amount, was that included in the cost analysis for the program?
I don't think so. I think this is separate.
Yeah.
It's,
Okay, so that sort of ties back in with what a program really costs us and how successful it is if we're going to look at all the things attached to it. But I'm
and it
happy to leave it
may
in.
tie into the gymnasium also up at.
Right, it's the Littman Gym.
It's mostly the gym.
It's the Littman Gym
Yeah,
mostly
The
for
Littman
this.
Gymnasium, okay, so.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
multi-purpose, that's what they call it's the gym. Multi-purpose is the gym.
Maybe that's where they eat, play basketball.
It's where they play. It's where we play basketball on the weekends. It's where the futsal is.
Right.
So I mean, so therefore the restroom needs extra cleaning, as does the gymnasium.
I'd say leave it in there and then come back and,
And look at the program.
Right, I think that was one of the items that was on the list. Was all the
Yeah, but
Yeah, it's
It is
on
on
that
the list already.
right. It's on it's on the list already. All the items that we provide for the school, for both schools. The next item is the Jefferson High School subsidy. We've budgeted $67,500 in the past. I received an update from CYO, and we talked about this earlier. I think it was in September where I brought back that they were looking to raise their rates last year,
Did
but they chose not to.
They did, okay, good job.
Yes, we talked them out of it
Very good. Yeah.
because they did not want to increase the cost to the students. But this year, this is now another year, and they've got another 3% increase for CPI and a 3% increase for fuel. They would like, obviously if fuel goes up more than 3%, significantly more than 3%, they will come back with another increase in the middle of the year, and we'll probably have the same conversation. But this year they're anticipating $85,860 for the school bus. We get about $19,000 from the students. So there would be a cost of about $66,000 for the city. We can request, once again, we can request the chamber provide $10,000. You've heard them talk about their difficult financial times as well.
Stuart, the Jefferson Union High School District currently is basic aid district, correct?
I think they flipped over to basic aid. Yes.
They're basic aid, and that means that then they take the property tax revenue and they, from the different areas that reside within the boundaries, and they use that to fund it.
what basic aid means, they get ADA money. On the top of that, they get $120 per ADA additional. Once you become basic aid, you get $120 per ADA additional money that a school district that is not basic aid is not getting.
Okay.
So once you become basic aid,
All right.
you get $120
Right.
per kid more.
Okay. All right.
You get your property tax plus an additional.
Yes. Okay.
Money
okay,
per-
Okay.
per-
So you get additional money by being basic aid, but
Basic aid provided by the
yes.
state.
So just doing that analysis that you did for the 2x2 committee, Brisbane itself generates about $3 million in property tax revenue for the Jefferson Union High School District. I know you don't have those numbers in front of you, so you're not going to confirm or deny it. But we have about 150 kids or so that go to the Jefferson Union High School District schools. Yet we're giving the district about $3 million. And now their argument in the past was, well, hey, we can't fund this bus because, if we give money to you guys for the bus, that means we're going to have to fire a counselor. I mean, they put out the guilt trip. But yet, we give them so much more money per student than I mean, so the majority of the money, is going to other kids. And not to say that's bad or anything like that, and that we need to, that shouldn't be. But I think there's a little bit of a, crying foul there. I mean, they're getting a boatload of money. Now, granted, they do go back and forth from being basic aid to revenue limit, and maybe,
This area
when the revenue
needs to be
limit,
looked at.
then they're not having that type of money. But right now they're basic aid, and they are collecting that kind of money. And so, to me, they should be funding the bus.
We need to
That's
look
the bottom
at this.
line.
This is again.
They get enough money from the city of Brisbane that goes towards education, and we should apply a little bit harder tactic.
We need to review this.
What are you going to say, Clark?
I have a suggestion is, like with the Brisbane School District, is leave it in the budget, have this conversation with the Jefferson Union High School District, either 2x2, which we have one with them, or the superintendent, because we know that they just finally passed a, was it
On measure.
property tax?
That one? Parcel tax one?
Yeah.
Okay.
With $45, and I don't know what that's going to provide
We
exactly.
pay.
Whether, a bus was tied into that, I'm not sure, but we're not sure what the state's going to do either, because they haven't passed their budget yet. And my guess is they're going to have a bigger deficit, and they're going to go after the schools again and
So
probably
what
whack
does that
into
have
them.
to do with us? I think we need to look at this. I really encourage council to look at this.
Well, I know, but I'm saying we should go ahead and look at it, and talk to them about seeing what they can do to provide that service again, or maybe help reduce the cost of what we're providing. Because, as I said earlier, that this was never the intention of that money, only a portion of it was. And it turned out that 100% of it is now being provided for transportation, which is sad.
That's right. That was
That's what I'm upset about.
Well, I know, but
That's
it is what it is.
not for
So we still
academics.
have to see what we can do for our constituents. I think if we just cut it out cold and not have a conversation, then who's it going to hurt?
Yeah, no, we're not even talking about. The reason I brought it up was that, I mean, I think we should be funding, like you said, the $67,500 towards education purposes, not for transportation. But the kids got to get to school, and we want to make sure that they do. Though I do feel that some of that rationale that's coming from the school district, why they can't afford it, for the Brisbane kids is to me, it doesn't hold water.
Let me share.
And that's something that we'll talk about.
No-
when we talk with them.
How many bond and parcel tax you pass, it's still not going to be enough. They're still going to come back and say, we need this, we need this. We talked about 3 years ago when we gave this, and it went mostly to transportation, we said, let's review this. Let's really look at that. But we haven't done that. I'm agreeing, I'm supporting the idea of putting in the budget, but we really need to start looking at this seriously. The right thing to do is not to put it in the budget, review it and see if there's truly justification to put it there. But we don't have the time because we waited to the last minute.
No, the money, the $67,500, the original intent was for educational purposes. And to
Partial
me, that-
transportation.
Yeah, partial, and that's a good thing to do. Now, granted, the district said they weren't going to fund the bus anymore, and the council made a decision to change it. But I think that money still needs to go towards the kids. Whether, we use it for the bus, or we say, no, we're going to put it towards...
Well, because they didn't have the bond.
Education.
Now they have the bond. Remember, that's
Parcel
why
tax.
parcel tax. We forget about that.
I brought it up, and I said, we're going to talk to them.
Yeah.
So I don't know, what more can we do?
We're doing it because of our kids, but really, I don't want to support other educational needs. I want to know that. That's the key.
Well, I just, want to remind the council, we do have this in the resolution too. So if there's at some point that, we go and decide not to do this, we have to change the resolution, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we should be doing
No,
anything
you can't.
precipitous, like making it zero. I think that's, at
No.
this point, doesn't make any sense
You
because of the
can't.
timing and people's commitments and expectations and so forth. In principle, I do have a problem with the city budget, especially a city budget that may be in trouble, funding another entity's responsibilities.
Right.
But then you get into the issue, suppose they don't do it, then what do you do? And so that's why we got in this bind. But really, the schools should be doing it. But then, on the other hand, we're talking about what's going to happen to our budget, and we don't know for sure about that. We don't even know for sure about the whole redevelopment thing, the housing funds, and we don't even know what's going to happen in November, because if the governor follows through and if that proposition of his doesn't pass, then he's really going to sock the schools, and so we're, they're really going to be in bad shape
Right.
then. So
Right.
I think
Right.
it's one of those things we just have to wait and see, and do the most responsible thing. But it does annoy me that the way the system is working, there's this confusion about who's responsible for what, and
Right.
in general, in principle, we shouldn't be responsible for this. That's what you have
Right.
the school district.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right.
There's no disagreement on that.
Yeah. All right. So it stays.
Okay,
yeah.
so just so I can understand, the process is that we would, CYO is looking for an understanding so they can set their schedule. They would have liked to have had us let them know by June 15th. I said, well, that doesn't work for us because we're not going to adopt the budget until at least June 18th. We also need to send out letters to parents. And so, and I would do that as soon after you adopt a budget as I possibly could, to give them the understanding of what they would have to pay for the school bus. So, if this money is in the budget, would we still provide a school bus and then work with Jefferson Union High School District to reimburse us for costs of that school bus? So that way we would be, so I could tell CYO, yes, we're going to run a school bus. I could tell parents, yes, there will be a school bus. And then if Jefferson Union High School District doesn't reimburse us, then all of this money will ultimately be used for the school bus, and they would not have that ability to keep the library. They would have to make their decision about the library at that time for themselves.
Right.
I think would be the process.
Stuart,
I think we have to get our
if-
kids, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Stuart, the difference between what we currently pay for CYO and what they're suggesting is how much?
It's about a 6% increase.
Okay, how much dollar-wise is that?
While he's checking that,
And then, because what I want to know is if that increase was passed on to the parents, how much would that be to the parents?
while he's checking that, can I add an option? Could we, I know the reason schools got our transportation because this is a time bomb, absolute time bomb. You have unwillingly gotten into transportation. And as I mentioned, this is going to get bigger, bigger, bigger.
So what
I'd like
yeah.
to suggest is, could we keep it at the 67,000 cap?
Well, that's where I'm getting.
Rather than increasing it to 85,
establish a cap.
And then 2 by 2 can meet and see if we can still justify that. So because in September, when the college or whatever, if it doesn't happen, you still have to cut this.
Sure.
So it's about $5,000 is what the
Yeah.
increase has been.
About $34. If it's 150 students, about $34.
Well, there's about 60 to 70 that take the bus.
Okay, so that's more than that then.
It'd be about $70, $80,
Okay.
$75 a student more.
If it's 80 students, it'd be 63.
Yeah, and there's not 80 because the school bus doesn't hold that many.
Okay.
Okay.
But we, if that's what the city council would like to do, is say that we will pass that increase on to parents, I could add that to the letter.
I think we need to establish that cap because it'll just keep going
No.
up and up. And that is something that the previous councils had talked about. We've talked about doing the cap, and then in the end we didn't do it. But then last year we didn't need to do it because Stewart was able to negotiate, and they didn't increase the amount.
We leave the 67.5 in there and then have the discussion,
Right.
I think, with
Yeah.
the school district. And, I wouldn't expect them to say, sure, we'll pay for it, but I can expect maybe we might be able to get a partial recovery. And if that's the case, if we do, we may want to look at where we're at. And then if we do, then pass that savings on to the students, on that fee hike.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, to me, I think we should try and get the whole thing from the school district. If they stay basic aid and they're collecting that property tax revenue from the city of Brisbane.
Well, we need to have the
parcel
conversation
tax.
because they're gonna, they're.
I don't know. They've already spent the money for something else.
Yeah.
So.
Right, and the 67.5 plus the 20,000 we get from the students will pay for the bus, but it won't be paying for the additional library hours that we're paying for now.
That's key.
So I mean, that's
got to have that.
Well,
that's just what and if we can get money out of the chamber, but you heard Mitch come here and say that the chamber is in the same situation as everybody else.
Yeah.
Actually, when we started this process, it was really 70, 80, 90% of it was academic.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so out of this 67, we should really say 50%, or at least 60% of it should go toward education, supporting academic.
Yeah,
I mean, you really need to look at
and there could be, a group of parents that form, and they might want to do a car wash or do some fundraisers. And it's just the group of the parents whose kids take the bus, or the kids who take the bus, form a little group and raise the additional money, instead of always coming to the city to keep covering those costs. I mean, we already.
But
Are we?
we're keeping the 67.5 in. I'll tell CYO that it's okay to do,
Yeah.
and we'll send a letter to the parents. And the question is, do you want me to raise the rate for the parents by that $5,000, or do you want me to keep it the same, or do you want me to split the cost with them and do $2,500 more in student revenue? I mean, that's the last part of that question.
Yeah, I know. So what? I mean.
And I apologize. I mean, I know it's a.
It's.
But you're keeping 67,500 in the budget, right?
Yes.
So why do we have to increase your pick up more?
You don't have to, but then if the parents pick up more, then there would be some money available for the school for academic issues at the school. That would be the question.
Yes, I think academic needs to be addressed. I really do think academic need to be addressed.
What do parents pay currently?
It's about $300 a year.
300, and so this would increase it.
To about 370, I think.
Yeah, so that's about what, 25%, something like that.
That's not bad.
I think, yes.
Yeah, that's a significant increase.
Yeah.
We could just leave it like this year and come back and bring it back in as part of the conversation for what we provide to schools, and that way we have more time to discuss it.
But we're not talking about next year. We're talking about.
When's the last time that the parents paid when they had a price hike?
Probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Right, it's kind of like the sewer rate, I mean, the water.
No, I don't think,
Back, you hold
I
back,
think
and
that
then-
380
then, of
should
course, you get
go,
to that time where, you're going to have to, pay this money,
No.
and then, of course, now you're looking at 25%.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's so much, but, you really should have been paying, those
Well, I
costs,
think it's
over
reasonable.
the years, and then it wouldn't be so painful.
3-4 years
I
not
think-
paying any, into,
How about if we do this? How about if we do 50%? Tell them for, that it increase for half of the school year for 50%, and then we try and negotiate if, with Jefferson, if they're not going to provide any money, or, we got to have that conversation with them, and at least try and get them to pick up that increase. Because they need to do something.
Oh, yeah, I know, I
So-
agree. I mean, I think if we
Yeah.
had that money coming in from the district, that the parents should get the refund.
I just don't want to keep the business as usual. That's what I'm trying to get.
Can-
The school district needs to wake up.
Yeah, I understand that, Seppi, and I don't
Yeah.
disagree with,
Look.
that, but at the same token, I mean, it's, there's so many unknowns. Is there a chance we can talk to Mitch and see what, I mean, not.
I will send them a letter and ask them for a donation
For,
for,
what,
$10,000, but
well,
Okay, so you're saying the parents should pick up 2,500. That's what you're recommending?
50%.
Clark?
He said 50%.
Which
Right,
would be
the
$2,500. I'll support that.
But if the chamber gives more, then we would,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
then offset that with that.
we don't reduce.
We're
it.
we're dealing with 67.5, and then whatever is above that, we'll see what we can do from outside, whether negotiation with the school district, or the chamber donations, or,
Yeah, the only question I have about the chamber, if I understood Mitch correctly when he was making a presentation here at a previous meeting, he was saying something to the effect that the money they give to these public purposes is money that they get from us in the first place. And so it's really
coming from us.
taxpayer money just going from one hand to another, if that's the correct understanding of what he said. So I don't see much point in going to the chamber if that's true.
That's right.
that would be,
you're absolutely
that
right
would be
about
the
that.
understanding is, so if they give 10,000 for this, that means they would give 10,000 less for other public purposes. I mean, I heard the same thing you heard, sir.
Yeah, Ray, when it comes down to it, it's do we support, Clark's proposal of having the parents not pay the full increase, but 50% of the increase, which
Cliff.
is $2,500.
I remember superintendent came here and said the budget is really bad, partial tax hasn't passed, they have made any attempt. All of that, those were all part of the justification. Partial tax has passed.
Yeah. I know, but we haven't had that conversation with them, and SER needs to send out this letter, right? So we need to inform the parents.
Right,
So-
and all we could do is say, here, we will provide the bus, here's the cost, and if we get money from the school district, we can then turn around and give the school district money for other academic purposes. I mean, that's going to be ultimately what would happen this year, is what I'm hearing.
You don't think that if we were able to get money from the school district, that we could provide a refund to the parents? Or is that-
Yeah, I think you
don't-
said it eloquently, is it's been 4 years. and,
You're
I
not
mean,
going to.
Yeah, no, you're right. There should be an increase, because you're
mean,
right. The money should go towards education.
And that's what that's what I've heard.
Yeah, I agree.
So I can I can tell CYO, yes, I can send a letter and we can move on.
Yes.
Okay. I now have clear direction, or I hope.
I'm not.
That's okay, nobody wants to look down this way and let me get a word in.
You
So-
just say, okay.
I
sorry.
haven't had a chance to break
Okay,
in.
okay,
I
sorry.
can't get your eyes.
All right.
And
Throw a
Laura
pen at
keeps
'em.
seeing me go,
Okay,
but,
all right.
I mean, I think it's really important that kids have a way to school. And I think it's terrible that they aren't being provided transportation or a school that's close enough, or they haven't chosen to go to a school that's closer. And I think that we should get the city, the school board, or the school district to pay for transportation costs. But whether we keep the library open after hours isn't going to make a difference if we don't have the kids can't get them there. So I think it's important to get them there. And the district is the one who handles the funds, collecting from this?
Yes, the school district collects the funds for us, and then they send us a check at the end of the year, is how it works.
And so there is provisions for kids who are low income, families that are low
Yes.
income? And so they get a reduced fee
Yes,
or a low fee?
yeah, there's a reduced fee for those who are on a reduced lunch program, and there's another reduction for those who are on free lunch program. And I can't remember what those are off the top of my head.
The way they do in October, they get a count of the free and reduced meal students that have applied to the state, that they get discount on the food. They take that count and use it for many other things like transportation,
So our truly
grants.
lower income students here shouldn't be affected by the rate increase.
I can do that too if you would like. We've done that
I
on
would,
water and sewer.
I would like to make sure that the truly lower, needier families aren't impacted by the increase.
I mean, we've done that with water and sewer rates where we raise water and sewer rates, but we don't raise the rates for LIRA. I can tell the school district we would like to do the same. We may not. So then, obviously, the next question is do we want the parents who can afford to pick up that full $2,500 cost, or I mean, this is just.
That's working out the nuts and bolts.
I'll deal with it. Okay, senior trips.
So clarify back because now I'm a little off here, what you heard.
What I heard is that we would have available $67,500 for a school bus, that we would raise the rates for that we would raise rates where we would collect another $2,500 from the parents. I would take into account what we would lose from the reduced bus fare people, and see what I would do is I'd see what the difference is for the other bus riders, see if it's a significant increase or not. If it's a significant increase, I would probably look to see if we would still have enough to pay for the bus and not do anything. If it's not a significant increase, I would probably collect the full $2,500 in some fashion. I mean, that's kind of what I'm hearing.
Okay. All right.
I'll make my best judgment,
Yeah.
and I'll make the wrong choice no matter which way I go, and I know that. Senior trips.
But this item should be part of the future list of discussions for us to have.
It is on
Yes.
Not just 2 by 2, but council.
it's on
on the list.
Bless you. Senior trips.
Isn't it?
Pleasure.
You can tell I'm feeling better today because I'm talking more. Monday I wanted to get out of here,
Yes.
but now I'm feeling better.
So did I.
Significantly better. Senior trips. This is the amount of money that we provide to the senior club for the trips that they do to various places around the state. They do trips every 5th Wednesday. The seniors do pay a fee for those trips, but this goes to offset a portion of that fee. The $20,400 is more for the lunches. That's my understanding of how the breakout works. I get an annual accounting of it every July, so I just don't have the memory in June to remember what they gave me in July as to how everything actually broke out. But that's what those two items were for.
Can I? Sorry. Clark.
No, I was going to say, I think it's important. I mean, the seniors kind of regulate their own program, and we heard from the rec supervisors, kind of the details of that and, and the importance of it. And I think it's probably from a social standpoint of what we spend on that we get a lot of bang for our buck with our seniors on that. And I would suggest leaving it in there. That's where I'm at.
Right.
I've raised the question previously about whether it might be possible to collect some kind of fees from the people who get the free lunches from those who can afford it. And I'm not sure how we can do that, but it does strike me that You know, there are some people there for whom this is a really important nutritional component of their whole week, but there are other people there who just sort of take advantage of a free meal even though they could easily afford, and I guess my question is, why are we paying for that? And so if there was some kind of fee recovery from those who are certainly able to pay for it, then I would be in favor of that.
Something like sliding scale.
Right. Unfortunately, this is not something that the senior club doesn't run through the city.
Yeah, I know.
So, I mean, the way to do that would be to, we can have a conversation, I can have a conversation with the person who runs the senior club and say, you know, if we were only to provide you $15,000 in this upcoming year, could you make up the difference by charging your club members the difference? Or if we can only pay you 17, I mean, I could have that conversation with the person who runs the senior club.
I was going to suggest maybe even 10,000.
If I could. But the purpose of giving the money was for them to regulate what they chose to do within the club, as a club. That, okay, here, we'll give you this amount of money, kind of like what we do at the chamber, but you make your own rules and everything like that. It doesn't require, you know, a recreation person moderating or anything like that. This is a subsidy that the city's going to give to you guys, and you make your own program. And if it's, you know, a luncheon that they chose to do, then that's, you know what I mean? It's kind of, I hear what you're saying, Ray, but it's like, well, they're regulating their own program. And
I think that if we're asking for cuts from other programs and other departments, I think we should see if we can make a reduction, and if they can, I mean...
I agree.
And I think it's only fair to ask for a reduction. Maybe a small reduction, partial reduction, not strip their program, but...
Do you think something like equivalent to what we give the chamber?
Well,
this is what we give to chamber.
Yeah, but there's also the $2,800 senior trips. I kind of look at, I know they're separate, but to me they kind of seem the same. There's about $23,000.
So why don't we make this to be 12,000? Plus the 2,800, that's almost 15,000.
I'd make it 20,000 total. Then that would be equal to the chamber.
we used to give them 20,000, but I was asked to push it up to 20,400 and make it an even dollar amount on my check.
No.
Then how about 16?
I mean, it's up to whatever you
I mean,
want
I
to do.
just-
I will I'll tell the senior.
Why don't we leave it as it is and then go communicate with the seniors, because we're not doing that, and we talked about doing that with the other programs, and
You're right.
if we just do this, I mean,
Okay.
we're asking for trouble.
Yeah, I
You know
don't
what?
think we
And
should
we're-
do it
yeah.
unilaterally without conversation and
Okay,
so forth.
so I will leave it in the budget, and I will talk to the seniors, and
then
that will
we'll
be an
try
item
to
I'll bring
say,
back in
you know,
October.
We have some concerns about this, and let's see if we can negotiate
Well,
something.
you know, also, you know, you bring up a good point, Clark. I mean, here we are, we're talking about, like, making some cuts here and there, and it's like, okay, where's our consistency?
Right.
Right, we have no consistency whatsoever, because we haven't dealt with, you know, creating the priorities, and then, that's why I was hoping we would do the priorities first, and then you could go into, you know,
That's
looking at these
what
things,
we were
but
going to do.
but we're doing it backwards, and
Well,
but-
actually, I don't agree with that. I think by discussing these kinds of issues, in the process of doing so, we are really thinking through our priorities. I think it's coming out in the conversation. I think it's very difficult to do it in the abstract. The way you get the priorities is that you have to address a specific need and a specific expenditure, and then you say, okay, what do we think about that? And we're doing that, and I think we're getting there. And
Well, you know, it's you know,
I think it's
know
okay.
I know it is, you know, and then we're gonna get there,
Yeah,
right? And
right.
so, and we're like almost at the end there, so let's keep going. So we
Okay,
can
and-
tonight.
So this will be one of this. I will make a commitment. This will be one of the items we bring back in the next 4 months to let you know how the conversation went.
Okay.
So that way it doesn't just die here tonight. Day in the park. We spend, as you saw, about $21,000 for this.
I'd like to see we try to do it a little less expensively. How can we budget less and do
Sure.
it less expensively?
Sure, I mean, we could have less activity, we can have less of the big things for the kids, we can have less bands there. I mean, there are ways to, there are ways to do this less expensively.
Okay, is it on our list of things to,
I have a suggestion
we have a festival.
on this.
This is not, it wouldn't be on our list of things to talk about in October because this will be over by then.
Yeah, I have a suggestion on this one, is to leave the 21,000 in there, but to have staff work diligently, like what we do on the, what is it, the concerts in the park? Is have them work to find sponsorships for this day.
If you,
And I think we can kind of at least reduce the amount, you know.
Yeah, no,
with all due
I
respect, once you live in the budget, it's a done deal.
I-
If you cut it in half or whatever, then the efforts are made to bring the money in, then you got what you want. I think we are reverse. Remember, we're trying to cut the
Well, you
deal
know,
with the deficit.
I understand that, Seppi, but at the same time, planning is required for this. It's not like, start planning in September for
No, this would be, if we were going to
Yeah,
reduce it.
if I can make a suggestion, maybe one of the things that we discuss is the events that we do. And are there ways to put on these events in a way that helps reduce costs?
So one of the things that, just to let you know, on Monday, we're having a meeting of a Park and Recreation Subcommittee on fundraising. So, the Parks and Recreation Commission understands the need for fundraisers. I've had the conversation with my staff about that we need to find a new way to fund Parks and Recreation. The model that we currently have is antiquated and is not going to work in the upcoming years.
Yes.
And these kinds of conversations really, highlight the difficulty that we have in the way that we fund Parks and Recreation. So this is an area of concern for staff. This is an area of concern for the Park and Recreation Commission. But having said that, if you want to say that you only are going to allow us $15,000 to put it on, we will put on an event for $15,000. It just won't have the same number of things for the kids to do, or it won't have the same number of bands, or we will spend staff time trying to raise the other $6,000.
and a little.
Those are my alternatives at the moment.
I agree with that, but I'm just saying I think we should leave it in there. We were looking at this when we were looking at the playground, the new playground, and we had the mob come in and say that, well, we'll do a fundraiser, and by God, they did. Mm-hmm. They raised this exact amount in about 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. And so I'm saying I think that we should leave it in there to allow our Parks and Rec committee to have a surety fund that this is going to happen, but at the same time do due diligence on fundraising or sponsorships.
Okay.
Caroline was very successful on getting sponsorships for concerts in the park, and that turned out to be a minimal expense. And that's kind of what I think the model
Right.
we're probably looking at.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. There could be definitely some sponsorship opportunities for the community.
So I'll leave it in, and I'll give Russ the guidance that we need to raise funds.
I was
for
just going to observe that we are really setting up, appropriately so, a lot of questions, a lot of requests for help from the Parks and Recreation Commission. And we probably should get it sort of all together in some kind of a list of, okay, we want your advice on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because we're really asking them to give a lot of advice, not only on all the different programs, how we can do them more efficiently, which ones are the ones they would give priority to, and then, of course, the whole fee schedule. So we're really asking them to do a lot.
What may be useful is to have a joint meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission and the City Council or the City Council Liaison Committee.
Yeah, the latter, I would think.
The latter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe we can set that up for some
But
time.
I do think that we want to make it clear that we have a a whole raft of requests out there.
Right.
Yeah, but there's a special subcommittee that is.
That they're going to use for
Right.
fundraising.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So-
My goal will be
And
there.
by the way, you're not going anywhere
Yeah.
because we cut your travel and training.
No, just for speed, we have Festival of Lights, Beautification Day, Fire Hydrant Painting, and Lagoon Cleanup Day. They're kind of like these.
They're all the kind of the same stuff.
Yeah, so can we just say, let's fund those things, and we
So-
have,
Take a look at.
So in summary, by putting this item in the budget at this full amount, at this critical time, you can't do anything in September about it, because this money is going to be gone. That's what
yeah,
you're saying.
I think at the last.
To me, that's a
meeting-
mistake,
I
and
think
we
at the last-
continue to do this.
I think at the last meeting, we all said that we were going to be comfortable with the amount that we would go into the reserves. But that we're doing we're going to be doing this extra research to see how we can make the budget a more priority-based type budget. And that ultimately is where you want to be for the future. So, I mean, granted, we can shave off, a couple $1,000s here, a couple $1,000s there, but ultimately, we have to be looking at how do we reduce $1 million, and we need to be thinking, how do you implement a way to where your budget, as Stuart had said, is gets you to where you're balanced.
I think this item
This
needs,
doesn't.
So,
I think this item can be reduced to at least $15,000.
Right.
And you're going to have a marvelous event, even with sponsorship.
I think we all,
Keeping at 21,000 is a mistake.
Okay. Well, I think we all decided to leave it in. I know that you're not in favor of it,
Right,
but
I'm just
the majority of
saying
the council,
Can I make one comment, please?
sure.
I understand Seppi's concern about leaving things in the budget and then they'll get spent. But as this year's budget is looking to see, there was $400,000 in the budget that didn't get spent. So just because it's here doesn't mean it's gone.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that we can't do something in this fiscal year to reduce the amount and cut down on, while we'll have a potential of a deficit, it doesn't mean that we need to incur the entire deficit. So,
right, I mean, that's always my hope.
I mean, that's our hope. And
I'm not going to guarantee you the
so
same
while we
thing next
do
year.
go to our commissions to try to find, and our staff, to try to find ways to reduce things, I think that we need to do that as an ongoing, and that's why we're coming back to look at things.
And I do hear the direction that fundraising for the, I mean, this is a change in philosophy for this that the council has provided to my staff. In the past, we've never wanted to have sponsorships for things like the community festival, because part of the sponsorship is people like to have their names out in public. And we've worked very hard to not have those kinds of things. So, my staff understands that this is a change in philosophy, and we are willing to take on that challenge of raising funds.
Can I make something about a comment about its sponsorship? We need to be very careful to really list the organization that is paying the money, because sometimes I've noticed when we're listing the sponsorship, we're giving the name of the person that brought the sponsorship in, and we might forget that it's a company behind that person. It wasn't an individual donation, it was the company, and I can talk to you about some.
Yeah, you need to, because
Yes.
my understanding is we've listed as sponsors the people who, as they've asked us to.
Okay.
So if there's something different,
I give you one,
you
yeah.
let me know.
Yes.
But yes, okay. But we will look to continue to raise money in different ways. Books and publications, we can live without that.
Okay.
The disc jockey for teen dances. This is a question of, do we want to continue teen dances? This is successful. I mean, if you're going to cut something, don't cut this one. Cut something. I'd rather cut $2,000 out of the teen center budget itself.
Yeah,
just to let you know.
Kids can't do the disc jockeying?
No, if it's
Got to be a
successful.
professional.
I'd be a little worried about having certain kids do disc jockeying. I mean, because there are high school kids who do it, but I would be a little concerned that they may not be as appropriate as you would get from.
You know, because BDW has, I mean, I like, Eamon Schumann did the lighting I think he did the lighting for the BDW show, and he just volunteered and he did it. I think that's something where you could get some high school kids to volunteer and
We
use
can ask.
hours.
I mean,
I'm
it's
not
fine.
sure about it, teen dances. You know what I mean? I think they'd rather be, most of them would rather be participating than,
Oh, this would be like a high school kid that wouldn't go to.
I mean, these are middle
you
school
know, middle
dances.
school dance.
oh,
I
okay.
mean, this is, we could see if there's somebody willing to volunteer.
That's why
But I
they
could see
say
someone like
teen.
Eamon Schumann say, "Yeah, I'd love to DJ that thing." You know.
I think we should leave it in and see if
We will
there's
check.
some way to
Okay.
reduce it.
Having been to a number of bar mitzvahs, there's a difference between different kinds of DJs.
In middle school kids.
Some of them get 13-year-olds to dance, and some of them don't.
middle school kids.
I mean, but I understand. I mean, we do understand what the goal is. The goal is not to spend money if we don't have to.
Right.
Dance and party food supplies. We need to feed the kids while they're there. If we're going to have if we're going to have the dance, we should have the food.
Yeah, you don't want the kids to come with doggy bag and brown bag.
And no, we don't want brown bags at the things. I mean,
Right.
could be the wrong thing in the brown bag.
Correct, exactly. No, serious, that's true.
Yeah.
Special merit awards. This is, if we ever get the yak going again, these are the kinds of things that the yak gives out for the teens. I don't know if we're going to get the yak going again. We're not at the rate. We're not finding volunteers, as you heard. We're not finding volunteers who have the time for this.
Remember we were talking about, right, and putting things in line item. We were talking about putting money under contingency, under like city manager or finance director discretion. So when
Finance
needs
director.
like that come up, then we can revise the budget to give it. Rather than putting this money like $600 here, $800 there, why don't we designate it under somebody, and if need comes, then do a budget revision, rather than having all these line items.
We can do $600 in city manager's budget under.
I'd like to hear from the other council, but all these items that we said, let's put it, Ray, when I was talking about even this concert series, even this schools, stuff like that, all of that, we could put them all under city manager or somebody's discretion rather than in the line item. If the need comes, then they can take it from there and appropriate it, rather than putting it in the line item. Because once you put in the line item, you're committing it.
Sure.
So everything that we have done tonight, we've said, we come back, but budget for it. I really think all of these items should be under city manager's discretion or city finance director. And I know he's going to love that because he's going to have to do a little bit more.
Well, what I was going to say is, rather than creating a kind of whole nother level of bureaucracy and that I'm not
Right.
sure is going to be all that efficient. If there's areas, and I'm making notes here, that you made comments on with regards to looking at ways to try to do cheaper, and, we will do that, and I'll work with staff to make sure that happens.
Right.
And we'll take a closer look at the expenditures of all these items.
So you're not suggesting a city manager slush fund?
No, I'm not, Mr. Mayor. Just to be clear.
Okay, the travel and training, this is when we send the yak to the annual teen event. And I think we actually do have the yak. I think we have 2 people in it, and that's really the issue. It's not effective. They go to the annual thing, but it seems as if those people who would be good for the Youth Advisory Commission are overscheduled already. People who it would be good on their resume, excuse me, are already doing lots of good things that will be good on their resume. And that's really the challenge that we face, is that the good people are being, same thing that you face when you're looking for volunteers for stuff.
That should be 0 then.
I think we can zero it. If we need it, I'll find it someplace else.
Okay.
It's not overly expensive.
All right.
Computer game and console, we just bought ones at the teen center. I think it would be better for this to be zeroed out this year and to really understand what we're going to do, because I think what we may end up doing is having more events for teens as opposed to a place for teens to not come.
Yeah.
Right.
We heard you loud and clear on Monday.
The other thing that may be possible is with Zark Recycling being here and them doing a lot of the computer recycling and hard drive recycling, is if we do have a program that needs game computer kind of things, we might be able to get them from there as a donation.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
You think they'd get updated stuff like that?
Pardon?
You think they would get updated stuff?
Well,
Clark?
Well, it's an interesting question. If you're only using the
updated
internet,
or a year out of date.
if you're using the internet, you don't need the latest and greatest.
It's just an idea.
Yeah.
Though my kids would disagree because they don't have the right.
I guess we should ask them
RAM
a
chip.
question, huh?
Yeah, you don't have the right something kind of chip that my kids are complaining about. Samcat. We went through this. We went through Central Services earlier. These are the ones that are in yellow are the ones that I did not hear a definitive answer for. And if I heard a definitive answer for the others by mistake, I apologize. But Samcat is our annual contribution to San Mateo County Telecommunication Authority. They were the ones who assisted us with the negotiation on the franchise agreement. It's an ongoing thing. I hear that, even if we budget for it for this year, we may not be spending it because I hear they're having issues about staying together as a group anyway. I was looking for Caroline because she's our rep there at the moment. So, I mean, I don't know what to tell you if this is a good idea still or not, because it's kind of in flux because the franchise agreements were just signed. So like they don't really have anything.
What do they do exactly?
They help out with the negotiations on the franchise agreements is what they did.
Franchise agreement?
With the cable companies.
Oh, cable company. Okay.
Right. So I mean they're very useful for that. I will tell you, we are the financial people for that. So we get money. We get money for.
Oh, you get paid for your service.
We get paid for our services from them, for being their financial people. It would seem strange it would be their financial people if we weren't in it. It would be kind of a strange thing.
Yeah.
But as I said, everything I'm hearing, they may actually end up going.
So they pay us to pay, and then we pay them.
Well, yeah. I mean, they pay us to keep their books.
How much do you get?
I don't remember. I think it might be like it's in the 4-digit range. It's probably more than this.
Seems like a wash to me. Then I mean, put it in.
Okay.
Time and
But we may be
we
losing
may
that
not
at some
even
point.
spend it.
Peninsula Conflict Resolution Center.
Why do we give money to the Skyline?
This was we discussed this previously.
Yeah, I know, I forgot.
Oh, I was. I lost my thought now. We give them money to the president's discretionary. They do an annual event. We co-sponsor their event. The president for Skyline raises money so they can put on additional educational programs. They put on, they do the women writing workshops. They do new kinds of classes. So what they have is an annual event where they bring people to donate to this, and we are one of the sponsors of that morning breakfast.
One of the that I know about this, for 2 students got scholarship from Brisbane to go to nursing program that they could not otherwise go. It's for student scholarship. They call it President's Innovation.
Right.
Bring programs that would help, particularly this bad economy that some kids could not continue going to college. They were helping that. I've been very involved in helping them to raise money. And all other communities help the community college. Our area never had any support to community college, but they help with scholarship.
Okay. Thank you.
If you want to take it off, I'm fine, but
Yeah, I just didn't know what it was.
yeah, that's what it was.
Clay just told me I'm in real trouble.
You lied about the definition.
Matt came through a perfect game tonight.
Oh, really? Wow, that's awesome.
Really?
Perfect game.
That's what he told me.
So, Seppi, that was Skyline Community College?
Yes.
That's what we're not funding now.
No, we are.
We are.
That's in the council.
We are, because
Column.
I know
Before, now.
Oh,
guys
kids
fine.
are
Okay.
going,
I see the blank, and I'm
Right.
I'm
Okay.
starting.
they got accepted to this
Cross-eyed.
nursing.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely, worthwhile cause. It's one of those things where if, say it wasn't in our budget and they came before us, would we say, yes, we'll find a way to fund it? There's so many, wonderful things that are going on, that need funding.
The good thing about it, Chamber of Commerce matches this too. Wasn't it last year that they paid also $2,500? This is almost
So we
$5,000.
paid $5,000.
I think they were, no, they said, I'm not sure whether they did or not. No, but I'm not sure what they did last year or not, but I know in the past they had done it. I had approached them. But things like that, when you said there are no options, once the money is not there for them to get a scholarship, they can't go. But when we were talking about crossing guard, we can say there's a possibility some parents volunteer can do it. There is no option.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that,
Right.
there's so many wonderful nonprofits.
I agree.
Out there, that you get the information, in your box, and you get the emails, and you say.
But we don't
"This
really do
money,
a lot.
If we don't get this money, these folks are going to be hurting, and
Our city really doesn't do a lot in providing
I know.
donation, contribution to communities, tuition assistance. We don't do a lot.
We do a hell of a lot more than a lot of communities
Yeah.
do.
Oh.
I mean, because with what we donate to the schools and.
Yeah, the
we
school park.
spend it locally. I mean, it's one of those things where I'm just making a point that, sometimes when something's in there, you just tend to leave it in there.
That's
Yeah,
why
we left-
everything's on up to you today, for the past few nights.
Maybe something should come out and something should go in.
All
right. Peninsula Conflict, we're at 1025 right now.
Keep going.
Peninsula Conflict Resolution Center. I think everybody's here is aware of what they do.
Yeah, we may be using them again.
Okay, so then I should leave it in. Okay.
No, wait. I don't think the two, both sustainable and the conflict, sorry, I'm talking about Peninsula, I don't think we're going to need this.
No, this
This is not what we spend for them.
Yeah.
This is
for the community.
Oh, yes, because we're coming up, yes.
Right,
yes.
this is not for the
this
council.
is
Got
the
it,
council.
okay.
This is so they can help out people in the
Okay.
community. Neighbors have disputes.
Okay,
Mediation service.
Right.
really.
okay, got it.
Okay. Sustainable San Mateo County.
Well, of course, I'm in favor of that. If we believe in environmental sustainability, they produced wonderful indicators, which we do use. And we did use their services with the energy evaluation, energy forum program. And we had that really extraordinarily informative house evaluation that Sustainable San Mateo County, they had what was called the Energy Ambassador Program, so they assisted us in that.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think it should stay in there.
I think they're good, and it's not
Yeah.
that much money.
Okay, let's
I'm
move.
good with it.
Okay. San Mateo County Youth Summer Jobs. It's a donation. It's a contribution we make to a summer job program for San Mateo County youth.
Right, I think there are about 7 kids go to summer youth program
It's worth
from
it.
Brisbane.
Yeah,
Oh, good.
it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, it's not that much either.
And that last $1,000 for travel and training, that's actually for Albert. He doesn't really use very much, so we can find the money someplace else.
Okay, so zero that out.
Zero that out.
Okay, good.
Okay.
All right, you took
So
off.
what I will do
So
for
congratulations, so far you've saved $6,000 tonight.
I will bring back the list of things that are going to be,
$6,000
what I will say is
per
added
hundred.
back to the budget, because they're all, as you've pointed out over a number of times, they're all zero, so I'll have a list of everything that you have said yes to, and that will be part of the Exhibit A or I'll attach it as Exhibit A for the budget adoption on June 18th.
Were you coming back to co-sponsorship?
Oh, I was. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Okay, we're at
You're right.
10:28. Do we want to take a motion for?
Yeah, let's do a motion till 11 o'clock.
Okay, should we take a break first? Because that was what Terry requested about a month ago, that if we do extend a meeting, that we take a break after we make the motion.
I would like to finish. I see that we have a member of the audience that I think is interested in this item. And if we can be quick about this item.
How about this? Can we get I have a motion for 11
I'll
o'clock. Do I have a
extend.
second?
I'll second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And then Stuart
finish.
had his thing. I know we're going to do the break, and we will do that. And you made that suggestion, Terry. And I think that we should honor that before we do the break.
Can we have the public members speak in case if this is going to take longer?
Is this a long thing?
What's your
Here,
anticipation?
the list of items that you asked us to bring back, they're the Bay Area Filmmaker, the Live at Mission Blue, Artist Evening of Sharing, BDW, Butterflies and Bulldozers was a movie, Shakespeare is an ongoing thing. Every year we spend, as you see, we spend about $20,000 plus or minus. It may not be specifically these, but other people do bring back. Every co-sponsorship that we do is brought before the City Council for specific approval. So if you want to, you could budget the 20,000, and then you have the decision for each and every co-sponsorship that is done.
I think this butterflies and bulldozers should have been zero because that doesn't exist anymore.
This is what we had spent in the past year. So every year we spend about $20,000. And every single co-sponsorship comes back to City Council. So if you decide you don't want to co-sponsor something in the future, that would be fine.
So could we budget 10,000?
If you budget 10,000, the only thing you're going to really fund will be the Artist Evening of Sharing.
Yeah.
If that's your decision.
But look at sponsorship. We were talking about coming up with finding resources, donations.
But when these things, these individual items, at least from what I can gather from what Stuart just said, that we can determine how much in the end
Yes.
we'll apply towards that.
It'll be on a case-by-case.
And if you want to
Makes
budget 10,000, that would be fine. We'll just,
I think the 20,000 should stay in.
I do too.
I agree.
And then,
I just think that,
That was
Item by
quick.
item.
That was quick.
yeah.
But as I said, you will see each and everything that we
Yeah,
co-sponsor.
Yeah, and I think the fact that they all come before us, but that there needs to be some comfort level on the part of those people who want to do the co-sponsored events that, there's likely to be funding there if they need it, so I think that's important. And I'm thinking now of Live at Mission Blue, which of course I'm a big fan of. I think on occasion we're spending too much money on the Artist Evening of Sharing, but that's something we can talk about when it comes before us. It's a nice event, but if you add up everything we're spending on that, it's quite a bit.
we're basically funding the whole thing,
Right, exactly.
the whole
Yeah.
program,
So
100%.
that may be something we might want to look at, but I think that, leaving that money in there as a budget item so that the key things we really do want to support, they know that the money is there for it.
Okay. I apologize. I completely forgot I missed that.
That's
We skipped
okay.
over it.
I would have forgotten too, except I keep
Seeing Kevin.
seeing Kevin here in the audience.
All right, yeah, and I know before we take our break, is there any member of the public who would like to come before the council? Chime in or anything like
Not
that?
seeing any takers.
What's that? Absolutely.
Of course.
Okay, good. All right, we're going to take a small break.
Supposed to be warm. Yeah, because now you know why? Because it doesn't. I don't have tea bag. Yeah, because I don't have tea bag. Budget cuts. I didn't bring my own. Bye, Kevin. Thank you for sitting so late.